Okay, welcome to the SOSCAST here on Valuetainment. My name is Adam Sosnick, and today we're having a very important conversation, discussion regarding Israel, Palestine, the greater Middle East. Everyone here on the panel wanted to know who would be on. They wanted to know what the topics would be. I said, you'll see when we get there. So before we get into this conversation, and it is going to be hopefully more of a conversation and a discussion, not necessarily a debate, I would like to sort of set the tone and some ground rules just so we're all on the same page here. So this is a very serious topic with some very serious things that are happening around the world. And I take my job as host very seriously. This is not a light job. It's a very unique situation because everyone here is either a friend or a friend of a friend. So I know you, you came referred, we're doing the deals here. So my goal is to have a constructive and very helpful conversation, and hopefully it's not combative and hateful. In other words, I'm telling everybody, try to be nice. It's very interesting. Now, if we can't get along here on this panel, what hope do they have in the Middle East?
Very low.
So guys, set the tone here. This is an open format discussion. I just have one request. Not everybody can talk at once, and our friend Elica, which we'll introduce everybody in a second, is via Zoom. So when she's talking, nobody can talk because then the whole thing will go kaput. So we don't need that. So the most important thing that I want to establish in this entire conversation is the following. I want the entire theme, as much as you can, to be solution-oriented. Not blaming. We know that. You can go on to any discussion in the world about you're the worst. Hopefully, we can find some solutions to the big problems that exist, not only in the Middle East, but all around the world, and certainly here in the United States. So, ladies and gentlemen, how does that sound? Can we do that?
Of course.
I hope so.
Yes.
Do it. Love to.
We'll solve the world's problems.
There it is right there. Elica, is that cool with
Tackle
you?
Africa while we're at it.
Why not?
Can I say inshallah?
Inshallah.
So, with that being said, let's introduce our guests. Let's start with ladies first. From across the country in LA currently is Elica Le Bon. Did I say that right? I'm going to butcher people's last names.
Yes, you did.
Okay. She is the daughter of Iran. She's an attorney, an activist, and I've seen her on Piers Morgan, and I've seen her going viral all over the internet. She has very strong feelings, and she's a very intelligent woman. One question for everybody, because I'm going to do the introduction. How much time have each of you spent in the Middle East? I'll ask you. So, Elica, how much time have you spent in the Middle East?
Well, if you're talking about the Middle East, excluding Iran, yes, I've been to several places in the Middle East, Turkey, Israel. I think I've been to Iran 3 times, but obviously in recent times, I, of course, cannot go to Iran because, of my activism. So that's been severely limited.
Were you born in Iran?
No, I was born in London.
Born in London. Okay, but your family is from Iran.
Exactly.
Gotcha. Okay. Well, thank you. To my left, all right, is Manal Abu Hannoud.
Oh, you did.
Did I do it? I didn't do it, guys.
We can try it again.
You did your best.
Say
You did
Abu?
your best.
Manal Abu
Hannoud.
Hannoud. I said Hannoud. What are we talking about?
It did not sound like that, but it's okay.
Okay. Manal Abu Hannoud. Okay. She's a Palestinian activist here in Florida. She's the founder of a nonprofit called Manal and the Olive Trees. Mm-hmm. Did I at least get that correct?
Yes.
There we go. Those are the 2 lovely ladies on the panel. Let me just go around the room here. We'll go like this. So to my right, Gabe Groisman. Full disclosure, I grew up with Gabe. Best 6'3" power forward in the Hillel basketball team, possibly in history. He's an attorney. He's a Jewish advocate. He's a speaker. And he was also, how many years were you the mayor of Bal Harbor, Florida?
6 years.
6 years. So any plans on running again for any other?
Not for now.
Okay. Well, thank you for being here. My new friend, Benni Rachmanov.
Very good.
Did I roll that CH?
It's okay. It's good.
Okay, we'll do okay. CEO of iShook. We've done podcasts together
Yes.
multiple times. Rabbinical judge.
Yes.
Rabbi,
Yes.
one of the best beards in the game, no doubt.
Thank you,
Good
guys.
beard.
And thank you for being here and facing the storm. Thank you guys all for being here because there's a hurricane coming.
No doubt.
So, and last but not least, on this side of the equation, Rafi Pinsky.
That is a
He is an IDF combat veteran. He's currently now a real estate agent here in South Florida, and he's the host of the Soothing Semantics podcast. How much time have you spent in the Middle East?
4 years.
4 years. Benny?
Was born there, but a couple of months only. I don't know.
Okay, born where?
In Israel.
Born in Israel. Gabe?
I'm in Israel 5 or 6 times a year, and I lived there about 12 years ago.
Okay. Manal, I didn't ask you.
Yeah. So I was born in Jordan and I moved here when I was 10, and I go regularly to Saudi Arabia because that's where my mom's family is.
Okay. Very nice. Now I'll just remember to ask everybody else. Alex Vilenchek.
Valenchik.
I'm just butchering everything, guys. I'm sorry. Dating coach, half Jewish,
Half Jewish.
but largely pro-Palestinian.
Yeah, mostly, yeah.
Okay. Gotcha. Well, thank you for being here. How much time have you spent in the Middle East?
I've traveled to Israel almost a dozen times. I've been through Jordan. I have a lot of family who lives in Jerusalem and Tel Aviv. So, yeah, I got some roots.
Okay. A new friend of mine, Sal the trucker, Saleem.
Yes,
How do you
sir.
say your last name?
Diab.
I would have said
Diab.
I would've said
Diab. Different ways.
Palestinian Christian,
Correct.
right? Author, photographer, and I actually saw some of your work in the book Face of Hope,
Correct.
right?
Yes.
And you were born where and
I was
how much
born
time?
in Canada.
Okay.
And traveled to Israel/Palestine, 1986, really young. 93, 97, 98, 99. Those 3 years were kind of a blur. So a couple years there together. 2004, got married there. And 2018 was my last trip there.
Okay.
So most of those photographs I took in Face of Hope were from 99 to 2004.
Okay.
So, yeah.
And last but certainly not least, I'm going to say doctor. Can I say doctor?
Of course.
I'm going to go with doctor.
Dr. Atassi.
Dr. Karim Atassi.
You got it.
I got it, guys.
Wow.
The grandson, this is very interesting, the grandson of Hashim al-Atassi.
Hashim Atassi.
He was the first democratically elected president of Syria.
Correct.
And he's a speaker and a peacemaker that promotes harmony between Muslims, Christians, and Jews.
Correct.
Okay,
Nice.
give us your intro. How much time have you spent in the Middle East? Where do you live now?
I have lived 18 years in Saudi Arabia. Now currently in Toronto doing my residency medicine, physician, family medicine in Toronto. Yeah, total 18 years.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we have a very diverse panel, Muslims,
True.
Christians, Jews. We have the daughter of Iran out here in LA. So it's a very interesting conversation we're going to have today. So let's get this thing started. So I want to set the tone and say, listen, there's going to be 3 major chapters we're going to cover today. And we'll try to go very quickly because Elica only has another 45 minutes or so. And I want to cover the past, the present, but most importantly, the future of what can happen in Israel, Palestine, in the greater Middle East. So let me open this up for discussion. Obviously, October 7th is what sort of set all this off, but that's not where this history started. I think we can all understand that. So how did we get here? Why did this all happen? And give us sort of your perception of the historical situation and how we got to October 7th. Let's start with Elica, because our time is limited. How did we get here prior to October 7th, and why do you think October 7th happened?
Okay, that's such a loaded question that I don't even know how to answer that in a few minutes.
Do your best.
There's obviously been a history of tension on the land, a history of conflict on the land, particularly between Jews and Arabs. And there's a long history of a very diverse demography on this land. We know that in the beginning, the Israelites were there kind of as an extension of the Canaanites, and then you had the 7th century Arab Muslim conquest, which brought the Muslim Arab population there, and then there's just a whole series of conquests. You get to the end of the Ottoman Empire, and at this time you have a very diverse population. But when the Ottoman Empire collapses, this is when the state forming process began, not just in mandatory Palestine, but across, there was the French mandate for Syria and Lebanon. You had Iraq, Kuwait, Saudi Arabia, UAE, all of these states forming. Now, at that time, it would have been a great time to set up a state for both Jews and Arabs in this land. I think the history of the land is marked by this rejectionism from the Arab perspective that Jews simply shouldn't be on the land. Now, I want to make this point. I want to make this point because this is a point that is always lost. Sometimes people will say, well, you know, they shouldn't have had to partition this land. This should have been entirely Arab land. I mean, I don't agree with that, and I don't think it's fair, accurate, or even ethical to make such an argument. But I do want to point this thing out, and I want to put this to the other panelists to see how they would respond to this. If people don't believe that this history is marked by anti-Semitism, which we know was happening everywhere in the world. We know it was happening. 950,000 Jews were kicked out of the Middle East. The Jews were being kicked out of and exterminated in Europe. We can't imagine that this piece of land was somehow immune to this anti-Semitism. And we know the Grand Mufti was collaborating with the Nazis. If you don't believe that anti-Semitism was at the core of this history of rejectionism, then let me ask this question. Why is it that in 1939, the white papers were presented to the Arab leaders at the time, which offered to not partition the land at all? It offered one Arab state with 75,000 Jews and with a promise that the Arabs would allow increased Jewish immigration solely at the discretion of the Arabs. They said, no, we don't want the Jews. That's why we are where we are today.
Why should they say yes?
Why shouldn't they have Jews on the land that's their ancestral homeland? Why should Jews not be on their ancestral homeland?
I mean,
So that's the argument right there.
So what's your question, Sal?
I don't have a question, but you're saying why should the Arabs say yes? I mean,
why? But if,
I'm
who
just
are
saying,
the Arabs
I mean-
to say no? Who are the Arabs to say no? It
because
doesn't belong to the Arabs. It doesn't belong to the Jews.
and it's
So
within
guys-
Levant. Based on what are you making the assumption that we should have just said
Based
yes?
on what? But based on what are you saying that this land belongs to Arabs?
It depends on how far back in time you go. Like, are you going back 1,000 years, 3,000 years? Because the land has belonged to Christians, it's belonged to Arabs, it's belonged to Jews.
Okay,
at
so
some point.
who did it belong to before
They all coexisted
the British
before.
mandate?
The Ottoman Empire.
Before the British
Right, and
mandate?
that was Turkish rule. That
Correct.
was Turkish rule. So it didn't belong to the Arabs, did it?
Yes, it didn't belong
For
to the
400
Arabs.
years, for 400 years, it was under
governance.
Turkish rule.
Okay, so I would like to start
Yeah, go ahead.
by validating, by doing it piece by piece. So you mentioned a little bit about kind of the history is really connected to the anti-Semitism. It reminds me of a quote that Herzl said. He said, anti-Semitic countries will be our biggest allies for we have the shared common view of removing the Yid from Europe. So I agree with you that the origins of creating the state of Israel come from anti-Semitic roots. The countries that Israel allies with, the US, Germany, Spain, have vivid anti-Semitic roots. It's ironic because the countries that are against Israel are the only countries that had Jewish roots, or Jews. Well, I'll change that. I mean, Jews lived in and thrived in, and didn't face the same pogroms that they did in Europe.
Like
You
which
say
country?
thrived
Sorry.
in.
Iraq,
Because you
Syria,
know that-
Jordan.
you know the Jews were dhimmis
where are
in
the
the Middle
Jews? Where are the
East.
Jews in those countries today? They were all driven.
Well,
out.
after the Arab-Israeli war and after something like the Mossad bombs in Iraqi synagogues in 1950, 1951, that scares the Jewish population. That expedites the movement of Jews to Israel. But going back,
Right, so you're rejecting the Farhud. You're rejecting Jews weren't driven out
And
of
just
Arab
to,
lands.
just to,
No, I'm not
just to
rejecting
make
Hold on,
a
guys,
correction-
guys.
No,
Go
I'm not
ahead.
interested. I'm not
Elica, go ahead, and then I'll come to
I
Gabe.
have
Go
an
ahead.
answer also when you're ready.
Elica, go ahead.
Sorry, I just wanted to make a correction that Jews were not thriving in the Middle East. In fact, the Dimma was
Maimonides.
created after
I actually
the
disagree
Dimma,
with you because they were
which was
all
a document
Oh,
that
hold on, hold on.
relegated.
We're going to go one by one. I'll
Sorry.
call
Yeah,
on
let's
you
do it one
guys.
by
Just
one,
raise
one
your
by
hand
one.
because if everyone
Put me
speaks
in
speaking. Elica, finish your point, then I'm going to come to Rafi. Go ahead.
Okay. So the Jews were not thriving in the Middle East. From the inception of Islam, the Prophet Muhammad drove out 4 Jewish tribes from Mecca, and the second caliph after that created the Dimma, which was the document that said that Jews were second-class citizens. It also had an at-will provision that it could be torn up at any time and Jews could be kicked out and exterminated from everywhere. That lasted for the
not
entirety of the caliphate. So
not true.
where are you saying that they
you
thrived?
do realize the first
Okay, so
wife of the
Manal, go
prophet
ahead.
I
is
actually have a
Jewish.
question for you. Do you have the evidence of what you are claiming?
No, none of what you said is actually
because that's
factual.
ridiculously
It's
outrageous in my
everywhere.
opinion.
Oh, so your point is what?
Documented literally
My
everywhere.
point is that
Elica,
everything she's saying is incorrect. Like,
What,
that's
Yeah,
not
a lot
even-
of
but don't say everything. Say the exact.
most
Say,
of a lot of things. Like,
Give me the point
nothing
by
about
point.
the prophet. Did he say that Israelis are secondhand citizens or
Israelis, no, Jews, yes. There was a
Actually, but-
document called the Dimmer.
I'll
You know what
explain
the
that.
dimmer-
I'll
Jews
explain
were
that.
coexisting in Palestine just fine before 1948.
Correct. Yishuv, old Yishuv.
I mean,
Okay.
there's so many examples.
let
of
him go and
massacres,
then-
like in
That's such an
1929 that
outlandish-
predated
I mean, we're just
1948.
forgetting that when
There
they
was
came on the
massacres
ship,
on both sides,
the
though.
only country, but let me
You
just
can't keep
give me a
moving the
moment.
goalposts, though. You
The
said the
only
Jews were
country
living
that actually
peacefully there. It's
accepted
not
them
true.
after
Well, let
the
him
Holocaust
finish.
happened on a ship was Palestine, and it welcomed them with open arms after the entire world rejected them. So based on what are you making those
As
allegations?
soon as they arrived, there was pogroms from the 1920s.
They were given papers,
up until
though.
the 1950s.
Manal, let me just ask you, are you saying that, just so I understand what you're saying, that when after the Holocaust, 1945, 1948, before the Israel became a state, that when Jews showed up, that they were welcomed with open arms by the Arab?
Correct. They were actually on a ship with an actual banner that said they stole our dreams and we
Don't
want
steal our
basically
dreams.
Yeah.
And you agree that when the Jews showed up in 1945 after
Well, this long
the Holocaust, that they were sort of greeted as friends?
It depends
by
on
the
how you
Arab?
put it, right? But listen, during the Spanish Inquisition.
No,
the
but
only
don't go to
people-
Spanish Inquisition. Go to 1945, and that's what
19
we're talking about.
Well, it was before, right? There were Jews that were present before, and there was a lot of immigration, Jewish immigration before.
Right.
Started even in the Sir Edmund Rothschild opened the Jewish National Fund. Started sending the first Aliyah at 1890s, I believe. They were coming from Russia. So because Sultan Abdulhamid, the Ottoman Emperor, refused the mass immigration of Jews when Herzl went and visited him. So what the Jewish National Fund did is started funding settlers under the radar to go and establish agricultural businesses and open business. They even opened the Anglo-Palestinian Bank to open businesses as loans. So it's hard to say because there was already immigration happening before that impetus. But you are right in saying that there is a spike of immigration for sure that happened after the outrageous, evil of the Holocaust. But I think going back to, what she was saying, the idea that this is all a history of anti-Semitism.
Wait, before you continue, I actually have a question.
Don't cut him off. Let him
I'll
keep going.
I'll echo the perspectives of Rabbi Jacob de Israel, who was assassinated by the Haganah because he was trying to make a deal with King Hussein, and I'll explain who that is later, because he realized that the movement of Zionism is coming from a secular Torah conflicting movement. I can go into why it's Torah conflicting later, but the idea that that this entire movement is anti-Semitic, or it came because of the rising anti-Semitism is majorly, I would say, a European perspective of Jewish history. Mizrahi Jews were thriving. There's about 800,000 Arab Jews or Mizrahi Jews or Middle Eastern Jews. Maimonides, great Jewish scholar. Saad Gawara, great Jewish scholar.
Wow,
in terms of the relationship
That's
between.
not how they tell their history, though. They don't say that. They don't
Maimonides
say that. They
talks about
said they were
anti-Semitism
largely
has so much to
ostracized,
do.
largely discriminated against, relegated to second-class citizens. That's their story. So how can you say that they're lying?
No,
Okay, Rafi, go ahead.
Can I go next?
Yeah. Maimonides talks. He wrote. I mean, Natalya, you could even bring it up.
No, I'm familiar
The
with it.
Rambam talks about anti-Semitism he experienced in Egypt and countries he lived
What
in.
year was that?
1100s.
12th century.
Okay.
I don't exactly. Yeah, but he,
Well,
he specifically
I don't think there's any merit to making the claim that Jews in the Middle East were not discriminated
Well,
against. It's so
I'm not saying
outrageous
that.
that we should
Wait,
just
wait.
move on.
I never
We
said
should
that.
just
Hold on,
move
guys. Let me
It's
just
outrageous.
finish
Go
this
ahead,
point.
go ahead, Rafi.
Long before 1948,
Yeah.
Jews in Arab countries, you can look this up, discrimination for the hundreds of years in Morocco, so many countries, there was no modern state of Israel. The men had to ride horses sideways. You couldn't build a temple taller than a mosque. There was so much anti-Semitism.
Benny, do you want to go?
Yeah, I would agree with what he says because historically we know in Spain they used to make us wear yellow caps, right? And when we walk the streets.
That's not out of the
One
Muslim
second.
Empire.
In Bukhara, they made us wear, we weren't allowed to wear turbans. And we had to wear a special Bukharian kippah. And this is all written in Rolfson's book. It's a special book that he showed, and he wrote it down. You can look it up. And it's known that we were degraded as a second-class citizens in all Arabic countries. And we had many times where there would be, in the middle of the night, pogroms. My great-grandfather was killed in a pogrom in Bukhara. It's in Shavsavs, it's called. So we know that these things we've experienced. What we're doing here is very complicated. We're taking micro events and making it as if it's the macro event.
No, I agree with that.
The macro event is that Islam didn't come till after Judea. Palestine is a name for the Jewish state of Judea.
By the Romans.
And you're just hijacking a name that's used for the Jewish people, which is Palestine by the Romans. So this definition of Palestine is the wrong definition. If you want to say that you're indigenous to the land, no problem. Jews always had, even in the Torah, always had citizens of Israel with the highest respect, even in King Solomon's time, till the end of times. And Saladin, by the way, the Rambam worked under Saladin. He was his private doctor. So we know that. He even writes, I'm working every night from morning to night just to check his concubines. He writes it in his thing to make sure they're not pregnated or they're healthy. It's a known fact. Saladin, when he conquered all of Middle East, there was no Palestine. Did you ever see any record of Palestine when Saladin conquered?
It's always been on the map.
Huh?
I've always seen it on the map in history
maps,
books.
When?
But also, let me ask you a
But
question.
when?
You're
There's
saying
no
there
map.
was no Palestine, and in the Torah it
No,
says
I said there was a
there's
Palestine in the Roman times.
Right.
And the Romans purposely called it Palestine to degrade the Jewish nation.
That is true.
Right.
Yeah, but you're
in
also
order,
saying the
in
people of
order to
Israel.
degrade them
guys,
for conquering.
let me get a
if
few
you would
words into-
explain what you mean by the Romans
So there was a
did
revolt.
this to sort of disrespect
There was a
Israelis?
revolt of Judea.
Okay.
Jews
What year
did
was
not
this?
want. This is about what 200? No, a little bit.
This is
70
after the bar,
BC,
after the
about-
bar revolt.
Okay, this is
the bar.
after Jesus.
This is well, I don't know.
before
Depends. Yeah,
Okay.
depends how you date it. All right.
70 BC before
Yeah,
Christ.
let's say between before
Jesus. Got it,
100 years before the destruction
Jesus.
till
Got
later.
it, got
Okay.
it, got it.
Yeah.
So the Jews wanted to revolt against the Romans because they wanted to have independence from Roman rule. They've been under rule from the Greeks and the Romans for over 300 years.
Okay.
So they started to create a revolt. They lost the revolt. And they said, you guys are not going to come back here anymore. It's going to be the Palestinian province. It's not going to be called Judea anymore.
Yeah.
It's to degrade the Jews who come from the tribe of Judah. That's why we're called Jews, in order to say this is now Palestine.
Now, why did they call it Palestine? What's the name of
It's
Palestine?
after
like-
the Philistines who were,
Okay.
Yeah,
who
it's
were
like
which
Yeah.
date
historical
back,
enemies
which
who were
date back
Greek.
to how long in the region? You
Right.
know, 12,000 BC. So there
Yeah.
are archaeological evidence in ancient Egyptian relics that talk about the Philistines. But this is confusing.
But there's also
But the
archaeological
Philistines are
evidence that
Greek. The
Egyptians
Philistines are
called
Greek.
Israel.
Philistines-
Yeah, yeah.
There's archaeological
Yeah, I
Israel
hold on,
existed
hold on.
from Egypt.
Who are the
archae-
Philistines?
archives. Philistines
But
were
the
called in Hebrew
Philistines
Plishtim.
are the
Okay, right.
Greeks. I can just tell you that the
Yes.
Philistines are Greeks from the Asian
Originally from
islands.
there,
They have
yes.
absolutely no affiliation with the Palestinians or Arab population.
I don't think this kind of
true.
framing
Adam,
is in any way beneficial to
gets so
discussion.
mixed.
It depends on how
Let me
far
frame it.
back
It's
you
historical.
go. At certain, well, at certain
listen,
points,
Let's not
We're,
use
we're,
go
we're
through
starting
Well,
with
let
the
me finish.
past
Well,
before we get to the
No, I know.
present.
I feel like
I'm
we
explain the problem.
So,
of the
yeah, go
framing.
ahead.
So so it depends on how far back you go. If you want to go 3,000 years, then yeah, Jews own the land. If you want to go 1,000 years, then you can say it's the Christians.
But you
If
are
wanna
going
go-
3,000 years. You're using the 3,000-year-old Palestinian term, which is
Yes.
2,000 years old.
I feel like
I'm
we
not
should be
using any
starting
term.
at the-
I haven't even talked so far.
No, but not
the
you
point-
personally.
wait,
I'm
hang
talking
on.
Let
about
Alex go. Let Alex go. Go
I'm
ahead.
just saying
let's
that
see.
Let me ask you a
it depends
question.
on what
Let
point
me
in
ask you a
history
question.
the land was owned by different people, right? But at this point in time, you
It was
have
conquered,
two-
never owned.
Okay, okay. I mean, you want to like nitpick everything I say.
So
we'll
it was
do
with
that.
King David.
But the
No,
whole
no,
point,
let me ask you a
the whole
question.
point I'm Jesus, can I talk? The whole point I'm making is that depending on how far back you go, a different part, either Arabs or Jews own the land. It doesn't matter. Right now, they're both stuck on this land together. So try and trace it back to, well, 3,000 years ago, it was my land. 2,000 years ago, it was your land. It's not going to be in any way beneficial. You can look at, for example, Russia's war in Ukraine. They claim that, 100 years ago, this was our land, right? But most people wouldn't say, well, yeah, but now that because of that, Ukraine belongs to Russia. So it's just not a particularly convincing argument. It doesn't really matter
most
that much.
contested piece of
Here's the
land in
thing.
history.
Here's the thing, though.
I also-
Elica, go here, and then I'm going to ask the next
yeah.
question. Go ahead.
I think the reason that this history is being brought up, not to make the point that Jews should have the entire land. It's the opposite. It's to debunk the concept of river
it's
to the
to
sea,
make a
and that's
claim.
what's so important. That's what's so important because during this period of conquest, the Ottoman conquest, this wasn't a state at any point. So this was
There were
a
no states in
colonizing
general.
entity.
What is
for
the
all
point of
intents and
debunking it?
purposes. And can I just finish?
I just want to know where
so
this is going.
during that period of time, the last time before the state of Israel today, the last time that there was a sovereign state on this land was the Kingdom of Israel.
Yep.
After that, there was no sovereign state. There was just conquests, right? Now, when you get to today and you're talking about splitting the land between Arabs and Jews, The history of rejectionism is the fact that Jews shouldn't be on the land. And that is what forces us to go back to history. If there was an acceptance that Jews and Arabs should both be on the land, there's absolutely no reason to talk about history.
Most people do accept that Jews should be on the land, including myself.
Can I just
Okay.
Many do not.
Go ahead.
Except
Go
none
ahead.
of the people in
Guys,
power.
let's
Karim,
guys,
Karim and then
Houthis,
Manal, and then we're
Iran.
going on to the next topic.
How
Go
many
ahead,
powers does
Karim.
Hamas
guys,
actually have?
listen.
Guys, listen. Before I have to treat you guys like kindergartners, when I call on you, you talk.
Of course.
Let's just do it like that.
Let's
She's
remember-
on Zoom. You guys are all on mics.
Yeah.
Please don't make me treat you like kindergartners. I
Yeah.
swear.
Let's remember all
Go
here
ahead,
for the
Karim.
common goal of teaching
Yes.
each other. So I just want to say, you were talking about Islamic caliphs. Who returned the Jews after Emperor Herod exiled the Jews 500 years? When Umar bin Khattab, the third caliph of Islam, came and took Jerusalem, there were no Jews in Jerusalem because Emperor Herod exiled them for 500 years. Who returned 70 Jewish families to Jerusalem?
Is this
It
multiple
was Umar
choice?
bin Khattab. It was an Islamic caliph who returned the presence of Jews in Jerusalem. Right? So to frame Islam as anti-Jewish is a completely incorrect framing.
It is a matter of fact. It's not a
Completely?
matter of opinion. Let me ask you this.
No,
Let me
it's a
ask you
matter
this.
of
Do you know
it's a
what
matter of
the-
fact, exactly.
Okay, can I tell you then?
told
Do you
you a
know what
fact.
the dimmer? Do you know what the dimmer?
Yeah, Dhimma
actually
refers to
states?
anyone who is not Muslim, and that's a tax that you pay, which,
Okay,
by the
so-
way, is
so-
because Muslims pay zakah, which turns out to be more money, and that's what you pay for getting the protection from the Muslim army. Right, you're paying a tax.
Okay,
let me just finish this point.
let me tell
You're
you-
a Muslim
Like the
army.
mafia.
You're a non-Muslim living under Islamic land. You pay a tax, and Muslims also pay zakah, which is actually more amount of money. And the non-Muslim is getting the benefits of free education, free healthcare, and the protection of the Islamic army. That's not something that is degrading. I'm not saying, but listen, I'm not saying.
Amounts of
I'm not saying there was
Wow.
never anti-Semitism ever. I'm
Come
not
on,
saying
come-
that.
please
I'm not
don't
saying that.
whitewash
But I'm
this.
saying scripturally.
Let's
I'm saying script. That's
let's
all I
talk
want. I just
about
want to
what
make that
the
last
dimmer
line.
It says we're the
is.
descendants of apes and pigs, though.
No, it does not say that in the Quran. That's not
Let's
true.
talk
That's a
about what
hadith.
the
That is
dimmer
very
Listen here.
fabricated.
Let her respond,
It doesn't
and
say that
then
in the
Manal's
Quran.
gonna
Actually,
go.
it doesn't say that.
Hadith, it says it.
So
It
the
doesn't
dimmer is actually a document that says that the non-Muslim people who came before Islam are protected, right? They're protected because they're people of the book. However, they are subservient beneath the Muslim people, okay? They are second-class citizens. Now,
How can you marry them
under
if
the
they're
dimmer,
second-class
wait,
citizens, though?
I'm not finished. Under the dimmer, not just Jewish people, others as well, Zoroastrians, yes, they had to pay the tax. They couldn't own their own properties. They couldn't ride horses. They couldn't be armed. And in fact, in Esfahan, okay, which is in Iran, the people who could not pay the tax, okay, the dhimmis that couldn't pay the tax, 100% of them were beheaded. Okay, so let's not pretend that living as a second class citizen under the dimmer was in any way non-discriminatory. And I just really want to move on from this point
we will.
of erasing anti-Semitism from the history of
No,
the Middle
I'm
East
not.
because
So
it's so
here-
well documented that it's just not a good thing to argue.
think
about.
everyone will
We're going to
agree.
move
Let's
on
debate
to
about
the next
something.
topic,
It's just
but
not
this is why I
scripturally
started.
Islamic. That's what I'm saying.
Thank you, guys. This is
Yeah.
why I started with this. I just asked what the history of this conflict was. For someone like me and our audience that's actually trying to learn, I didn't learn anything. Why?
We went way too far back.
Hold on. I'll let you host your own show when you have that. You guys aren't even agreeing on the facts of history, and that's fine. It's all good. But my whole premise is, how are we going to move on if we can't even establish basic facts, historical facts? And that's cool. I'm not going to spend the rest of our hour or two arguing about what happened in the past. I want to talk about today and the future. But that was just a small glimpse of we can't even agree on what happened in history. But let's look on the bright side. Let's see where we can go from here. Next topic.
The question.
Thank you.
Yeah.
The Middle East, there's some countries that I would say are doing pretty well. There are some countries that are not doing pretty well. My question is this, and I'll do it around the circle. What country or what state actor do you think is the biggest destabilizing force in the Middle East? Who do you think it is?
Iran.
Gabe, do you want to go?
I mean, Iran's not put specifically in the Middle East, but Iran is the biggest destabilizing factor in the Middle East because of the proxies that they have activated throughout the Middle East, and primarily the purpose of which is to drive Jews out of the land of Israel. That's why Hezbollah exists. It's a reason for existence. They were created in 1982 and 1983 when the Lebanese threw out the PLO from Lebanon, or Hamas, who was created in 1988 when the Jordanians got rid of their claim. They gave up their claim to the land in the West Bank that they were controlling illegally since 1948. They have the Houthis. There's different groups around the Middle East, and the whole purpose of which is to destabilize. But the question is why?
Okay,
Right?
here's
Hold
my
on,
question.
wait 1 second. The question is why. So, Alex, you say that the history doesn't matter.
I didn't say that exactly.
No, you said the history doesn't matter, and I'll tell you why it does matter. Because there's hundreds of thousands of Muslim Arabs in the Middle East that are hell-bent on murdering Jews every day of their lives
That's all well
because
done.
because
When did I say the history
I'm going to
doesn't
finish
matter?
my sentence because
Sure, just tell
of
me when I said that.
their claim historically that they're to the land of Israel and saying that their Jews should be driven out of that land because it was once controlled by Arabs, by the Turkish, by Muslims. So that's the reason why we have this conflict in this area, and to distract the world from the dictators and the dictatorships and the autocracies that we have in the Middle East. And if you can look at one place, if you ask the question a little differently, which country in the Middle East do Arabs have the highest standard of living? And
Oil
it's in
countries.
Israel itself.
All right, here's my counter
Wait,
question
real
to
quick.
you.
When,
Hold on
when
one
did when
second.
did I say that history doesn't matter?
We're not doing this.
Well, I'm paraphrasing.
I'm
You
just
kept
gonna-
saying
I'm
we
just
don't
gonna
have
ask
to
my
we don't have to
question.
go back in time.
I would like to
Promise
have a moment.
everybody here,
I would
I'm
like
going
to
to
have a
host the
moment.
show.
We're not
Yeah.
learning from
And
that.
you'll be called on when I ask you.
Here's my
And if
question.
not, we have to cut a mic. Because I already see how this is going ugly. Manal, go ahead. What is the biggest destabilizing
No, I wanna
country?
give-
No.
I want to address his
I'm
point.
going to ask you the question.
Yeah.
What is the biggest destabilizing country in the Middle East?
I would just say, like, the tax dollars being funded into genocides and meddling into the Middle East. There's no peace in the Middle East if you continue to meddle in it.
So what
To your
country are you
point,
talking about?
I'm talking about it in general as the
No, but I'm
Levant.
asking you a specific question. What country or state actor is the biggest destabilizing force in the Middle East?
I'm not going to be answering that directly. I'm just
Why not?
saying it
What do you
as
mean?
a point.
Pick a country. I'm not
I'm not going to pick a
Islamic
country because
Why
we
not?
all know the truth. Our tax dollars are going for genocide. So the countries that are being destabilized in the Middle East are not from Iran or Hamas or Hezbollah or any of the resistance groups. To your point, you're saying they are proxies in other countries, but why is that existing? Because there's genocide and people are dying. So they came after the genocide had already started. So you're already wrong with that point.
Yeah.
Like, we don't have to see eye to eye, but I'm just explaining to you my perspective,
Are they,
right?
just for your perspective to clarify,
Yeah.
you're saying you don't consider Hezbollah or Hamas or the Houthis
They're resistance
terrorist
groups.
groups? No, right?
They're resistance groups. Imagine
So no,
someone
is the
beating
answer
you.
no?
I'm going to give you an example.
My question is just, do you
Imagine
consider
someone
it a
beating you over and over and
You
over
can't
and over
answer the
again.
question, right?
What?
Are they terrorist groups, yes or no?
Is
I'm
the
not
IDF a
answering-
terrorist
Why not?
group? Is the IDF a terrorist group?
Absolutely not.
Is
It's
there
IOF,
IDF is created
first
with
of
the
all.
Irgun?
I can
It's
answer the
Israeli.
question.
Went there.
The
I'll
Irgun
answer.
is a
No,
terrorist
the
group.
answer is no.
So they're killing children and
use white
amputating
phosphorus.
children, and they're still not terrorists to
They're
you?
not terrorists, absolutely not.
So
That's
how
insane.
would-
Use
okay,
white phosphorus.
I actually have a legitimate question here.
Yeah.
Can I ask
What is? Yeah, Elica,
Can
you're
I ask
coming
a
next.
question?
What is the difference between a resistance force and a terrorist group? Because
that's
the point
pretty
is
easy.
Gabe
Is
is
that question
making
to me?
is yeah. I'll ask you and then I'll
It
come around.
depends on who
But
you are.
No, it doesn't.
If there's anything,
It doesn't?
I'm America first.
Sure.
So
Right.
if the United States says so and so is a terrorist group, they're labeled a terrorist group. So
Yes.
if the United
Like the
States
CAC
labels
is a terrorist
Hamas or
party.
Hezbollah a
Yeah,
terrorist group,
yeah.
how would you? Are you American?
I am. I do have
Okay.
the passport.
Okay.
But here's my thing. I'm also a truth teller. So if somebody is coming here and beating me and beating me and beating me and beating me, eventually I'm gonna rise up and resist that and fight back. That's what I resist. What's a terrorist to you is a hero to someone else. Is a
Okay,
savior to
so
someone
just-
else.
just
When you have no moral clarity, that's what you say.
Just
I
so
don't
we're-
have you.
That's
Excuse me.
Hold on, listen. No name
My
calling,
moral-
Elica. We're coming to.
My moral
Just so we're
compass,
clear.
we decided to keep
No
it
name
respectful,
calling.
so I'm not going to cross that
Yeah,
line.
we're not going to do ad
Adam,
hominem attacks. But
However-
just so we're
Let me say
clear,
something.
hold on. Are you saying, and it's fine, that Hamas is not a terrorist group, Hezbollah is not a terrorist
Well,
group?
who do they
are a
consider as
resistance
Hamas?
force.
Because they're saying everyone is Hamas.
No,
I see a 1-year-old
no,
is not Hamas, and you guys are still bombing them and killing
Nobody's
them.
saying.
Right. I mean,
but
no,
the
I've had
Hamas
conversations
is
with those.
itself.
It's
That
confusing.
US
It's a hard
It's the
question.
resistance
Is it though?
group.
Because
It's
they
not
commit
confusing.
It's a
terror.
resistance
They
group.
commit
Can't you say they're
Okay.
both?
I
I
just
think
wanna-
they're both.
They're both. That's a
listen,
that's a
They
good way of
used to
putting
be.
it.
it depends
Sal,
on-
go ahead.
That's a good way of putting
They're
it.
not both.
Man, I didn't
They're
know
not
we were
both.
going to start off with the history and stuff. I've traveled over there. And if you want to talk about massacres, you guys win by far. Okay, just to put that point across.
Dead
And you
Yassin.
talked about the invasion of Lebanon. That was by Israel that invaded Lebanon, that created Hezbollah. I've been watching a lot of YouTube lately.
Correct.
Anyways.
But
that's the
why
problem.
did
But I mean-
Israel
can't come
invade
from
Lebanon?
YouTube.
Because the PLO was attacking Israel from the southern border. You can't lie. It's not right.
We're not lying. You're
What
saying
is the lie?
There was no
Why?
invasion by
Why?
Israel.
Why was
I
there
mean,
an
if I'm wrong,
occupation?
tell me.
Is it not true? Is it not true that PLO was attacking Israel throughout the 70s?
Why does the PLO
from the border
exist?
over and over and over again?
I'm sure they were.
Why does the PLO exist, though?
And then let me finish. And then Israel goes in, okay, to
Right.
try and get rid of the PLO. The UN tells
on a
them
different
to
country.
leave.
Interesting.
The PLO comes back and the UN does nothing about it. So it forces Israel to finally go in and occupy where the PLO had occupied
Then why-
Lebanon as a foreign entity. You cannot omit that detail.
By the way, this
Wait, real
supported-
quick,
It's
real
not
quick. Why
right.
did Reagan call
I don't disagree.
Israel and ask them to stop because they're committing a genocide? Why did Reagan do that?
No, yeah, you did.
Why does everyone say that right now? Why does everyone say that
But
right
what?
now?
He's the
it's
U.S.
true.
president. Why
Everybody
was
hates
Reagan? Why did
Israel.
Reagan feel the need? Who was fairly
Why
pro-war?
does South
Why did he
Africa
feel the
bring
need to
a-
call
why
Israel?
Does South Africa bring a case of genocide?
But you're just
to the
asking.
ICJ?
You're answering my question
Because
with
they're
the
committing
whataboutism.
genocide. That's why
Just
they
answer
brought the
this
kids.
question.
The
Why
same
did
thing
Reagan
happened
feel the
in
need to
Iran.
call the
what they
IDF?
found? Is that what they found? Did they find that it was committing a genocide, or
I mean, there was a lot of
has
Reagan,
South Africa
well,
asked-
no, because
and
they
a lot of
stopped as soon as
Africa
Reagan
asked
put
to
pressure
del-
on Israel.
Has South Africa asked to delay the ICJ
This is
case because
completely
it can't come up
non-sequitur.
with evidence of
just engage in the
genocide?
question.
That's
Adam.
not really.
So just to be clear, and I'm going to answer. I have
not
one
gonna answer
question
this
here, and I
question.
want to go
Not to
around
interrupt,
here.
just have a
But
lot.
love to answer that
and Rafi, in your opinion, what country or countries are the biggest destabilizing factor in the Middle East?
Well, definitely Iran at the end of it. For me, the real crux of the issue is that Jews can't rule the land according to its enemies. So it's one thing if the Jews live in the land, that's a different story. But to rule it, that can't happen.
Okay.
So if Shias and Sunnis coming together to try to take Jewish rule away from that land.
Gotcha.
And it's-
Benny,
yeah.
biggest destabilizing force
For
in the
sure,
Middle East.
for sure, Iran.
Okay.
No doubt.
So all three of you say Iran.
right, we have
Go ahead.
historical
That's
fact
where it
to
starts.
Okay.
All the Mashadi Jews, all the Tehrani Jews had to leave in what was the year that I have, 1979?
No, we're talking now, though.
Not
We're
exactly
talking
sure.
now. Who's the
But
biggest
but
destabilizing
you know what I'm
country
saying?
now?
It's a mentality. You guys are missing the point. It's a mentality.
Yeah, but who brought
For example,
Ayatollah into power? Who Mossadegh was an
okay.
elected official.
One
Who
second.
toppled him? Wasn't it the
Oh
CIA?
my God,
let me
do
just
not
answer
start
let me
with
just answer the
Mossadegh.
question.
Go ahead, Ben.
The
Do
reason
not
why
start
it's
with
Iran.
Mossadegh. Don't start with Iranian history. Don't
No,
start
I'm not
with
going to the
Mossadegh.
history. I just want to tell you guys very factual. Jews had to leave Iran because they did not feel safe based on the extremist ideology that was being placed there. They had properties. They owned generations worth of wealth, and they had to leave. So if the Muslims were so forthcoming in letting us live in their country, why did we run away? Why do you have so many Mashadi Jews, so many Tehrani Jews running away from a country that they had generational wealth over there?
And what year
Well,
was
there's
that? in?
different type of.
Hold on, Alex.
good question.
Hold on.
One second.
No, Adam's
This
asking.
is
What year was that?
1985, 1989, in the 80s.
Okay, that's after
So what's
after
the
Israel.
point?
Karim,
What's the
the
point?
point is-
Karim, in
the
your
point-
opinion, what country is the biggest destabilizing
I would
force?
say Israel, and I refer you to Richard Pearl, who is the U.S. Secretary of Defense, who wrote a document for Netanyahu in 1996 for the next 20 years. And in that document, he details how Israel should conquer and damage, destabilize Syria and Lebanon. And he refers to basically how they have minority and majority destabilization and how they have a lot of ethnic sects. You're talking about PLO, who funded the Christian militias in Lebanon to fight against the Muslims. Wasn't it Israel? Okay, so
That was Ariel Sharon.
so exactly, that's the Prime Minister of
To
Israel.
fight against
Please
the
let me
PLO.
please let me finish.
To fight
Please let me
against
finish.
the
Against the
PLO.
PLO
No, you made
to
an
support
incorrect
the
statement.
Yeah, but
genocide
who's
of
pl- who's-
of
who-
Christians in the
statement.
area.
Who's meddling in other people's affairs? That's what I'm saying. You're painting
There was
Iran to
100
be a
massacred.
sole, to be
The
a sole
Islamic
player.
Republic is meddling
So
in
going
other
back to your
people's
question.
affairs.
Going back to your question.
So, but you're saying it's Israel.
I think it's Israel, and I think there's documents that show why I would say it's Israel, and I'm backing out with fact. Before Israel's existence, the Ottoman Empire that stemmed, including all the Levant, Jews and Christians and Muslims, I'm not saying there weren't acts of anti-Semitism, but comparing to how Jews were treated in Europe, Jews, Muslims, and Christians were living in relative peace. It is the only market validation we have where over 1,000 years of market existence, we see Jews, Christians, and Muslims being able to live in peace relatively so. The Jews are able to be politicians. The Jews are able to be... what other empire Jews were politicians and created scholars? And what other empire?
Do you know why
Answer me,
the
answer me.
French
Every
mandate?
empire.
Every
you know
empire
why
there
the
were
French
Jews
mandate
were
In
created-
politicians.
Germany,
in the past.
in Germany, they had leadership roles.
Yeah,
Do
that's
you know
not
why
really.
the
Hold on,
French
hold on, hold
mandate?
on, hold on.
Yeah.
Alika, what time do you have to leave, by the way?
It's okay.
She's
I've got
not
a
leaving.
bit of time. Do you know why the French mandate was created? Do you know why the French mandate created Lebanon and Syria. Why
like
they
Spico?
separated Lebanon?
like
Because
Spico?
because one of the reasons was that they needed to protect the persecuted Christian minority that was dying out. So they tried to create a Christian state out of Lebanon. Like you can talk about documents
That's
all
not
you want,
100%
but you
true,
can't.
though.
You cannot deny facts.
No, yeah,
like
I'm
in
not- I'm
instance,
using
about people
facts.
who
Why was
had
Lebanon
ideas,
Wait, my
mostly
question
Christian?
is
but
where
you
Yeah, I'll
cannot
answer.
deny the reality
Yeah.
on the land.
Yeah.
Elica, where's
listen
that
to me.
fact from?
So
Lebanon was mostly Christian. so.
It's you can't say where are the
you're-
facts
you're
wrong if
neglecting-
you haven't
Bring up some
opened the
stats.
books to
Half
find
was
the
But
facts.
Elica, because I really want to
Half,
understand this
kind of?
question from
Nowhere near
everybody.
that now.
In your opinion,
37.
in your opinion,
Yes.
what
37%.
country is the biggest destabilizing force in the Middle East?
Okay, let's talk about that. The Islamic Republic, by the way, which is not Iran, okay,
It's not even
and it's
Islamic.
really disrespectful to call Iran the Islamic Republic. So please
I
refrain
agree.
from doing that. The Islamic Republic is absolutely the most destabilizing force in the Middle East. This is not a matter of opinion. This is not a matter
It
of
is an
finding
opinion,
a
though.
1,000-year-old document where someone made some claim and thinking, oh, maybe this is dangerous. This is a matter of fact.
It's a matter
you
of
have a
perspective.
regime. Okay, no, I'm talking.
Okay,
you
go
have
ahead,
a regime that has
Okay,
set up
respectfully,
an empire
Elica, coming off aggressively to try to,
I'm
like,
talking.
convince
I'm
you. can't all do
talking,
this.
so
Go
I'm
ahead.
going to finish talking, and that's how that's going to go.
That's
The
not
Islamic
how that's gonna
Republic
go.
has set up an empire, okay, and it's done so by creating proxies in the Middle East by way of imperialism. Okay, imperialism means to extend a country's influence in another country. So the Islamic regime, by way of imperialism, created Hezbollah in Lebanon. Okay, that is, they created Houthis in Yemen. Okay, this is Khomeinist ideology. It is foreign to the native lands. It is a form of imperialism. From that place, from that position, it has consistently set up attacks through these shadow wars against Israel. Now, I have a point for the person that said that these proxies are all intervening to help Palestinian people or whatever they said. I need to, okay, if Israel, for absolutely no reason whatsoever, let's imagine there's no war, no unrest, everything's going well. If Israel decided to bomb Iran, Syria, Yemen,
Which it did.
Lebanon,
They already did.
out of
They're doing
nowhere-
that right now. What do you mean?
No. Let me finish.
Yeah,
okay.
yeah. Let's let her finish.
Not in retaliation
It wasn't
to them
retaliation.
striking Israel, which is a matter of fact. Out of nowhere, decided to do that, and the response from Israel was, "I'm just saving Iranian oppressed people from the Islamic Republic. I'm just saving Yemenis from the Houthis.
Do you think
I'm
Iranian
just
people
saving
need Yemenis
from
Syrians
Israel?
from the
Israel?
Assad
Israel?
regime. I'm just saving."
Yeah.
Lebanese from Hezbollah. Would a single person on planet Earth believe that? Of course they wouldn't. And yet, somehow you believe that a terrorist regime that rapes, slaughters, blinds,
Those were all debunked, by the way.
Hilltop Youth, Ben
Multiple
Gvir.
times they were debunked. Someone has
Guys,
posted
guys,
right
guys,
there.
People
All right,
is
Elica, finish your
somehow-
point. 30
is somehow
seconds, and then I'm
acting
coming to
free
Karim.
oppressed people somewhere else. How in the world could you ever believe that? How?
So your contention. Okay, so everyone here. By the way, Elica, are you Jewish, Muslim, Christian? What are you? Guys, her volume is off.
Oh, volume.
My volume?
Oh,
Yeah.
she's
There we
back.
go.
What religion are you?
I come from a Muslim family.
Okay, so you are Muslim, but you're anti-Islamic Republic.
But a lot of
Most Persians
a lot of Arabs are.
The Islamic Republic. The Muslims of Iran are against the
Of course.
Islamic
Well,
Republic.
yeah, that's not.
I'm not pro Iran.
So-
you know,
but-
I'm not
but-
saying Iran is.
But you're saying that
Why aren't
Israel
you?
is the biggest destabilizing force. Salim, you're saying which country?
Oh boy, you're putting me on the spot
Yes.
of destabilizing as of right now.
Yes.
Well, Israel's bombing the shit out of a lot of countries right now.
Why though?
Why?
That's a good question.
Because,
how about-
because,
For the
because
greater Israel
Netanyahu doesn't.
project.
Netanyahu
so
doesn't
who-
want to go
how
to
about
jail.
this?
I mean,
How about this? Not a trick
Are we
question.
getting into
Who
the
was the
prime
biggest
minister
destabilizing
stuff?
force prior to October 7th?
prior to October 7th?
Yes.
Country?
It's like
Dude,
like
this
saying,
is a
Hold
hard
on.
question. I can say Iran if that makes everybody feel happy.
No, there's no-
but
we're
I
not-
mean,
no.
like I can blame
Guys,
Iran.
we're
and
talking to
Hezbollah
Sal
and
here,
Hamas.
so go
Just be
Sal.
honest. Answer the question honestly. What do you
Honestly, I mean, listen, dude, I'm just a truck driver, but I mean,
But you're Palestinian, you're
I'm
Christian, you have a
Palestinian.
perspective.
Of course I do.
Prior to
I mean-
October 7th, if you're saying it's Israel now, who was it prior to October 7th?
I mean, it's always been Israel, right? They're Palestinians live under occupation.
No, but I'm saying the Middle
I mean,
East.
I don't. Okay,
Yeah,
Iran. If that makes everybody happy.
No.
I mean,
Sal, don't take the
sure.
easy way out. We're not looking to make people
He's just
happy. We're
worried.
looking
He's
for
just worried.
truth.
The truth.
Okay.
I mean, I can say Iran, but like nothing's.
say what
That's
you
the
want to
problem. When you guys say truth, you make it sound like on TV that you know it all, and you don't. Nobody knows the truth here. I could only speak and say I might know this, but it could only be 80% true. And,
Okay.
and everybody has their own different perspective. You make it sound like
Alex,
you're some sort
yes.
of
Thank you, Sal.
historical.
Alex, thank you for waiting
Okay.
patiently. Thank you, Sal.
No problem.
Who do I think?
Yeah, who do you think is the biggest-
destabilizer? Yeah. So it depends on perspective. If you're someone who is, let's say, Israeli or you're American, then you're obviously going to think it's Iran. Even if you're Saudi Arabian, you're going to think it's Iran. If you're Palestinian or you're, let's say, Lebanese, then you're going to think it is Israel. If you're Iraqi, you're going to think it's America. So a lot of it depends on perspective. But this very point in time, in the
Palestinians
last,
don't support the
wait,
Islamic
just hang on.
Republic.
You just ramble for a while. Let me just get a point in. For the last 9
No, I
months,
just want to say Palestinians don't
okay,
support
guys.
the
the
It's
last
Islamic Republic.
9 months, I would say it's been Israel because they have been doing the most bombing, displacing the most people from their homes. So at this very point in time, it is Israel.
But okay, so here's a question. When you say they've been doing the most bombings and the most killings, I don't know if that adds up. Because listen, hear me out, guys.
Okay.
I don't know if you guys have been following what's happened in Syria for the last 10 years.
Yes.
I don't know if you guys have been following what's going on in Sudan for the last decade. I don't know if you guys have been following what's going on in Yemen.
I love that you said that.
They're winning the body count war. Now,
by miles.
So
Yeah.
now we can argue the facts and the numbers, but I don't even think it's close. You guys fact check the hell out of me
Not
right
even
now.
close.
There's a difference.
From what I understand, Sal,
difference between civil
that-
war and
hold
violence.
on,
Okay.
hold on. If we're just solving for civil war, religious war, regional conflict, land wars, we can kind of go tit for tat. I'm talking dead people. How many dead people have occurred in Syria? A million?
Half a mil? Was
Half
it?
a million?
Half a
No,
mil?
just a half a mil.
In the last
How
9
many
months, though?
people in Sudan? No, I'm asking.
Yeah, I'd love to
Millions.
reply to
That one I don't
How many
know.
people
There
in
was a
Yemen?
genocide there. A lot of people died there, yeah.
So my question is this: there's, we hear the number 40,000. What they can't
over
distinguish
200,000.
between.
45. Yeah.
It's over what?
Douglas Murray brings
it's
that
very
point.
close or over 200,000.
Yeah,
I have
We're
never
making-
heard
we're
that.
just making up numbers
I,
now.
no,
Okay,
that's according
I
to the
can-
Lancet. I know what you're
Report.
saying.
Now we're just making
It is.
up
It is according to the Lancet
guys,
because
I've fact checked this.
Can I
thing.
just bring 20-second
Hold on,
point in?
hold on,
Okay.
guys.
45,
I'm going to ask the
45,000.
question, and then you guys could all yell at each other.
yeah.
So you want to do it? Okay.
We just said million, half a million.
Right.
The number that I've heard consistently recently is 40,000 dead
45. Okay,
Palestinians.
okay.
So she just threw out 200,000. If this, I'd be like,
No,
sure,
she's not wrong.
200,000.
She's not wrong. The
I'm not
Lancet,
wrong.
the Lancet,
Just
the
a
Lancet
different
does
way
say
of
So this
measuring
is
So you wanna
including
tell me-
Hamas.
I have a question for you.
Hold
Adam.
on, no,
Don't
no,
forget
you're not
under the
asking
rubble.
questions here.
Under
Nice
the
try.
rubble.
Here's my question.
Yeah.
Why is it Israel that's the biggest destabilizing force when
Yes.
there's literally millions of dead Muslims and Arabs all around the Middle East?
Great question.
Afghanistan, Iraq, Syria, Yemen. Some of these countries, Trump says these shithole countries. Some of these countries are freaking shitholes.
Yeah.
So
But this is in the last 9
why
months.
why is Israel?
Why does that matter?
Why
Guys,
is
do you
it-
mind
It
giving me
does
the
matter.
space
Go ahead,
to
Marcus.
answer
Go
this?
ahead, go ahead, Kareem.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if you want to kind of talk about the destabilization of the Middle East, let's talk about the Middle East for a second.
Yeah, but answer my question
Yeah.
about the numbers.
I'm going to come to it, okay?
Okay.
You have to understand that when you look at Syrian civil war or what's happening in Sudan, that there is one entity that is creating destabilization in this region, and that's kind of American interests, the CIA. It's a remnant of, as they toppled Mossad, they were talking about Iran, as they toppled, Saddam Hussein, right? So you have to understand that it's like kind of like a puppet analogy, right? You have the United States and the CIA funding rebel groups, creating destabilization, accessing natural resources. They empower one person. He does well. He becomes a dictator usually. And then when they don't like him anymore, they get rid of him. Like if they wanted to get rid of Bashar al-Assad, they would have done so. But they don't do so because he's killing his own people.
Like you mean
So
a Gaddafi or something
Yeah,
like
exactly. So there's a reason. That's exactly the cycle, by the way. You destabilize. You want to destabilize power. You support the rebel groups. You get them to kill or people, and then what happens is that they come in as the victorious, wanting to free the country, as they did in Iraq with weapons of mass destruction that were never found, kill hundreds of thousands of people, spend trillions of dollars, and then what they do is they empower the rebel groups. Now they have access. They have a party that works with them as the West. And then, whenever they don't like that person, they repeat the cycle. So to answer your question, you can't look at Syria, Sudan, etc. as like this, the world's one map. You're looking at them as independent people who wear different jerseys. It's not really like that. There's one person that is creating destabilization in all of these areas. You're talking about Israel and why they're the most destabilized country. Very quickly,
Israel has the right to defend itself, let's say if it gets attacked, okay? Everyone has the right to defend themselves. But do they have the right to come and bomb Iran's embassy in Damascus? When you bomb an embassy, you're bombing it on their soil, technically, lawfully. So if you do that, just 1 second, if you do that, that's an act of war. So and then Iran, and then Israel kills the chief negotiator of Hamas while he's visiting on a guest visit in Iran. They kill him in his room. So let me give you an example. Ben Gvir, let me just say, Ben Gvir is accused of supporting terrorism. Ben Gvir is a cabinet minister. If Iran kills Ben Gvir with the excuse that he supports terrorism and bombs Israel's embassy in Turkey, would you accept that Israel does not retaliate?
So he didn't answer the question. I'll tell you why you didn't answer the question.
No,
you didn't answer the question. Wait. You didn't answer the question.
How did I answer?
Because no Jews, no news, right? If the Jews aren't the ones who are perpetuating, hold on.
Actually, he's right. That's what I was about to say.
The reason why you don't care about the millions of Muslims being killed all over the world is because the Jews aren't the ones that they're not involved in that. And now I just need to address two more things because
I'm the first one to condemn Hezbollah.
There's two things. Congratulations. Listen, there's two things that I want to respond to that I was waiting to patiently. First of all, everybody jumped out of their seats twice in the last 5 minutes. One, when you said that now everyone jumped out that Israel is responding by bombing all these countries all over the Middle East.
It's not responding.
You know why? Wait. Too bad, because we have a state of Israel and an army that you call a terrorist group, okay? The Israeli Defense Forces. Now the difference is, you guys have been, the Muslims, not you guys, I'm sorry, let me rephrase. Muslims have been attacking Jews since time immemorial.
Why are you making it about religion?
What do you mean time immemorial?
Give me a fact. I'm going to finish my sentence. No,
but let's be factual.
The difference is now that we have an army that's going to respond to defend our people, and the place of the land, yes, of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob that was given by God to the Jewish people. Yes,
Gabe,
absolutely.
That's
army? Going all the way back. That's first. The second time you guys jumped out of your seats, which we have to address because we're a day after October 7th, is when it was said that Hamas came across the border and murdered and killed and murdered and raped and burned over 1,200 innocent people in Israel, and everyone jumped out of their seats. It was debunked. This is the reality of the life we're living in now. Hamas themselves.
I said it was debunked.
You said it was debunked, except, but I'm going to answer.
Any evidence?
Exactly.
You didn't see any evidence of what?
No evidence
of what
it was
Hamas
someone
did.
saying
Hold on.
it. Yeah,
Hamas filmed the atrocities themselves. Hamas filmed the atrocities themselves on GoPros, and they sent it out. They sent it out on video to the world. Absolutely. And I visited myself the kibbutzim. I spoke to the survivors myself. I saw the videos myself. I saw the evidence myself. It's not. And guess whose propaganda it was? It was Hamas's propaganda. They weren't embarrassed by it, but because it doesn't fit your narrative, you just throw it out as fake news.
Okay, so hold on. Videos that I've seen
you can say it over and over. You could say it. First, there's no such thing as IOF. There's IDF, the Israeli Defense Force. You don't get to change things because it doesn't fit your narrative.
Gabe, finish your point, and then I'm going to ask you, so you don't need to interrupt. Yes, and then Elica, you can go. So hold on. I need to understand something. I need to understand something just so we can have this conversation. Are you saying that October 7th didn't happen? What are you saying exactly?
Happened.
What happened?
I am saying it.
What happened?
Yeah. You tell me what happened.
No.
What's your reality?
No.
There is no. This isn't left-wing media.
Listen.
You're saying that we came out of nowhere and we just did it, and you guys are now justifying it.
Nobody here is talking except for you.
Okay.
I'm asking you the question.
My thing, and I've
what
had
happened?
Time and time
Hold
again.
on. Hear me out. What happened on October 7th? Go ahead.
October 7th. Well, we all know what Hamas did. They were resisting.
What did they
do?
do?
What did they do?
What did they do?
Yeah, like what happened on October 7th?
I woke up and I saw the news just like everyone else. But now, what version of the news did you see? Is what I'm asking.
We're asking you the question.
I am asking that question.
No.
You don't
put it on us.
No. Guys. Listen, I don't know if you know how hosting a show works.
Yeah.
I'm going to ask a question and I'm going to wait for an answer. So I'm going to ask you.
Claiming that they raped, killed, and beheaded children, this is all propaganda?
No, they did.
But did they kill people? Hamas come across the border and kill people?
Yeah.
So
but Israel knew about that.
Everyone is people. Yeah, like
what?
Anybody is people. All civilians are people.
Okay, so they came across and they killed. Allegedly, it was 1,200 people. 1,200. What are you saying?
I mean, that is the reality. Yeah.
Okay, so you're saying
I agree with that, but everything else he's saying is not correct.
No. I'm not worried about what he's saying. I'm asking you a very specific question.
Yeah.
On October 7th, the reason that we're all talking here is because allegedly Hamas resistance fighters came across and started slaughtering Israeli civilians.
Yes.
Are you
military?
Are you denying that all these people died?
I'm not denying any deaths.
Okay.
I'm just simply saying
move
verbiage
on.
matters. So
were
let's
killed
just be
nicely.
You're
careful.
saying it was
They
okay.
were killed
It's
nicely.
a valid
No,
reason.
I
Did I
don't
say
think
it
it's
was
okay.
okay? Did
That's
that
not
come out
true,
of my
man.
mouth?
That's not
Yeah,
true.
but you're
Did
insinuating.
I say that though?
That's what you're insinuating.
But did I say that?
Walk me
The
through.
resistance
you
fighters.
think-
So automatically
Okay.
you are admitting.
After 76 years,
Okay.
so that makes it
after
okay.
76 years.
Who was occupying Gaza?
76 years of what, though?
Who was
76
who
years
was
of what?
occupying
Because
Gaza?
has it not been
They had
76
full
years of
independence in
attacks on
Gaza. What are you
Israel?
talking about?
They weren't allowed to
independence?
trade with
They-
other countries. They
Why
weren't allowed
not?
to have an airport.
Thank
They
you.
weren't allowed
They
to have a
don't have a
theater.
border with Egypt.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
well,
So let's
Has it
kick out the
not- has it not
Palestinians
been
from their native
76
land. Is that what you're saying?
Dude, it was
Can
an
I-
open
can I-
air prison. We all know.
We're gonna go down the list here.
They were
Sal,
living for like
Kareem,
Come on.
Elika, go ahead.
So you want me to
So
start?
go ahead,
So
yes.
first of all, I just
October
wanna
7th, what
respond to
happened?
the-
Hold on, Elika, one sec. October 7th, what happened?
I wasn't there.
No.
Okay.
No,
well,
guys.
I want to state that.
What's the problem of
dude?
saying what
I
happened?
Can't they
was-
admit?
none
Why
of
can't
us
they
were
just
okay. I
admit
just have
it?
to state
Okay.
that fact.
Go ahead.
Right? I wasn't there, but what I can pull out of my brain, it was an attack by Hamas. They were flying around in these, what do you call those?
paragliders.
Power gliders and machine guns, and they went in there and started shooting innocent Israelis. And there was a party with young children doing shrooms and smoking weed and dancing a Bob Marley.
The Nova
probably,
Festival
About, the
is what you're
Nova
talking
Festival,
about? Okay.
about 2 miles away from Gaza. And what in the world were they doing there? Especially if Israel had some intelligence that there might be a Hamas attack.
It's a short
so
skirt
this
theory.
I know I'm a conspiracy type guy.
Because the
so I
troops
mean,
were on
like,
the
so you
West
don't.
Bank,
Nobody knows the truth in that day, and nobody will ever know the truth.
What,
And
what
then
do you
don't
mean
forget.
no one ever know the truth?
Well, come on, man. This is
just
going to be a
postmodernism.
JFK thing.
Postmodernism.
No, I don't-
Truth is not
Yeah,
really
yeah,
true.
yeah. I don't
No,
think
it's
it's
not.
like-
There's some
I-
small
actually,
things that might be
I'm
disagreeable.
trying to be, hear me out.
And let me finish
I'm
this
trying
one
to be
little
as
quote here.
neutral and as
yeah.
just
I'm trying not to
common
interrupt, but
sense as
And another
possible.
thing, well, I'm not.
It was
I mean, I
pretty
have-
clear
I'll give you my-
that Hamas,
Right.
resistance fighters, terrorists, however you want to label them, flooded across the
Yes.
border
Yes.
Are you
and
saying
started
that they did that
murdering
without a
people.
reason?
That's correct.
Correct.
You
But
didn't
wait,
let me
did they do it
finish.
without a
Okay,
reason?
so
We can get into that as long as
I'd like to answer my
Yeah, go ahead,
direct-
Kareem.
Everybody
What
listening
happened
here,
on
you
October
can't-
7th? Go ahead,
That
Kareem.
might be.
What happened on October 7th?
What happened on October 7th was
Yes.
Hamas attacked Israel, period. Okay?
Okay.
Why did they attack Israel?
Thank you.
A week before, there was a group of, let's say, very ultra-Orthodox Jews that went into the Al-Aqsa Mosque, even though that's not allowed according to the chief rabbi of Israel and not allowed
They did not
international
go
law.
into the mosque.
No,
That's
they
not
did.
true.
They did. No, that's true. No,
they
that's
went-
true.
They went up to the
To the
Temple Mount.
Yeah,
By
yeah.
the way,
Which
like
is
they
not
do,
allowed.
like
Which is not
thousands-
allowed.
It is allowed.
No,
Thousands
the
of
chief
Jews
rabbi
go
of
up
Israel
there.
says it's not allowed.
Thousands. That's false. I've gone
What
up
do you
there
mean?
twice.
The chief rabbi of
Thousands
Israel. I've read it
Jews
before I
go
came
up
to this
the Temple
podcast.
Mount every day. You don't go up to the actual site where the
No,
where
we're
the
talking
temple
about the
was.
sacred.
Let's
where the
not
Jews
get
are not
over.
allowed to
Let's
go.
not
Okay,
get over.
let me
false.
continue. Let me
They're made
continue.
of
October
conspiracies.
7th.
So,
Go ahead.
October
I'm trying
7th,
to focus on what happened on October
Yes,
7th.
Hamas
Go.
attacked Israel,
Yes.
but I'm saying that was provoked. The idea that it wasn't provoked is totally bullshit.
Provoked because someone went up
Just
to
let
the
me
Temple
finish.
Mount.
Just let me
Okay.
finish.
It is a
Go up
response.
every day.
That is
Okay.
a response.
So go ahead.
Thank you. That's all I've been saying.
Okay, it happened after 1,000 homes were being demolished in the West Bank that year alone. It happened after a lot of oppression is happening in that area specifically. It happened after that provocation. With, by the way, once the Prime Minister, I believe it's Prime Minister Ariel Sharon, walked that Temple Mount, the second Intifada happened right after.
2001.
Correct.
Yeah.
So doing that, that's what's so genius. It's always like a gray area provocation. It's like walking the Temple Mount. You're not killing anyone.
You wanted peace,
but
though.
But it's illegal. You know, and it's illegal to do that according to international law. And then you do that, and then
No, it's not. First of all, it's not illegal. You're
It
just
is.
making
It
things
is.
up.
No, it
Second
is.
of all,
It is a law.
your worldview
You're
is it's
using
okay
that
for there to
concept
be
for
places where
seconds.
Jews can't walk, where Jews can't live.
It's not me who
and
says
that's, No,
that.
that's
It's not
your
me who
world.
says that.
That's
Chief
your
Rabbi of
worldview. And
Israel who
because
says
Jews
that.
walked in a
It's
certain
not me.
place,
Can I
they
answer-
deserve
can I
to be
answer
raped.
this?
They
Okay,
deserve
hold
to
on.
be killed. Come on.
Let's go to
Can we
Elica
fact
here
check?
because
I
she
don't
doesn't
think
have a lot of
anyone
time.
thinks
Okay.
All right.
Welcome to the
Guys,
20th welcome to the 21st
Guys,
century.
everybody here,
Anyone
take a nice deep breath. Come on, guys.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah.
Elica, go ahead. What
I think-
happened on October
okay.
7th?
No, let me just answer this. I think it's very, very interesting that the people that say that this was provoked and this didn't start here, whatever, use literally the exact same logic that would justify the decimation of their own people. When you say that this was provoked, okay, you're talking about a nation that has been attacked for the past 76 years, okay? every time it's responded, it's done
Why
so
is it
in
being attacked,
self-defense.
though?
Okay,
Hold
so
on.
by that same logic, I could say, which I would never say because it's abhorrent, I would say, well, Israel will be justified in flattening XYZ because it's constantly being provoked,
Well,
and
you
that
guys
is how you
They
justify
are
the death of
justifying
civilians.
it every day. It's like, but October 7th.
Okay,
but October 7th.
I'm
Move on.
speaking. I'm
It's been
speaking.
76
I'm
years.
speaking.
guys are
That's what I
using
say
a lot
about
of-
you guys.
I'm speaking, so please don't interrupt me. Okay, so let me carry on. Let me carry on what I was saying.
Not talking when
Let me
she's
carry
Zoom.
on what I was saying.
Sorry.
So this gentleman said that, this attack started on October 7th from Hamas. Okay, we know that. Israel did not strike Gaza before that. We know that on October 8th, Hezbollah started firing and the Houthis started firing. And you made a comment that Israel had struck Syrian embassy, which it did not.
Iranian
it struck,
embassy in Damascus. Yes, it did.
It struck the Islamic Republic's embassy in Syria
It did.
at the time that the Islamic Republic was gathering with Hezbollah leaders in anticipation of committing terrorist attacks. Now, when you
That
use
doesn't
the
give it
embassy,
legitimacy to bomb
all
it,
that-
though.
well, yes,
Even if that's
yes,
true.
it does. Don't interrupt
one
me because
question. Yeah,
I'm
but it's not
speaking.
tr- even
if
When
that's
you use
true.
it for
Everyone
that
else
purpose, when you use it for that purpose, okay, it loses its protected status. Now, if you want to talk about,
What's the evidence
if you
of
want
that,
to talk
though?
about
Show me the
attack, if you
evidence
want
of
to,
that.
if you want to talk about attacks in a different country, Israel was attacking terrorist leaders, but the Islamic
political
Republic and
figures too, as
Hezbollah
well.
attacked a Jewish community center in Buenos Aires in the 90s. It was attacking civilians because that's what they do. Now, the point that I'm trying to make here is that we know that Israel has been attacked from 4 fronts since October 7th. If you want to talk about who is the biggest destabilizing force in the Middle East, okay, and you say, well, based on numbers, based on attacks, it's got to be Israel. This is the exact same argument as saying that there's 10 people in this room, okay? If 9 of them attack me, and I fight back to all 9 of them and knock them all out, I must be the biggest destabilizing.
No, but you slapped them
every
first.
group
But you
is
slapped
not
them first, though.
That is not how. That is not.
Every
that is
single
not how
group
you
said we
measure
will
it.
stop doing
That's
that
not
if
how
you guys
measure
stop
it.
killing Palestinians, if you guys
Yeah.
stop
I
bombing
love that. Adam, you
Palestinians.
said
I
you
just
want to
have
be
one follow-up
So,
question.
And that
Rafi,
will-
let
and
me
that will
let me
all
speak.
end-
Alika, I'm
and
gonna
that
come
will
back.
all
I'm gonna come back to you one
end when the-
second.
Can I
Alika,
Okay, let
Rafi,
me-
you
let
haven't
me
gone
just
yet.
The thing that's
Where-
the thing,
where-
Can I answer
Adam,
her point?
When's it?
there are times I want to talk, but
Yeah.
if I don't want to interrupt, but when I don't
Go
interrupt, I
ahead.
barely get.
You can go, and then Benny's
All right.
been quiet for like a half
So the
hour.
thing is the
On October 7th, what happened?
I mean, Hamas went in. They had They were coordinating with Hezbollah, with Iran, to go and invade Israel because at the end of the day, they want to take over the entire thing. They weren't able to. If they could have, they would have. The reality is this is a religious war. Whether we want to
not a
admit it,
religious
it
It's
is
not, though.
absolutely a
No,
religious
it's not a
war.
religious
war.
That's a very
Absolutely
cheap-
is a
No,
religious
Guys,
war.
guys, I don't think
It's-
you freaking
Let me
understand.
finish.
When someone's talking,
Yeah.
don't talk,
Yeah.
or your mic will get cut off.
Let's do that for everyone, though.
Perfect.
Okay.
Can we all agree upon that?
Yes.
This
Seriously.
Yes, sir.
Yes,
Go
this
ahead.
is a matter of inheritance. It goes back since the beginning of Abrahamic religions. It's Yishmael versus Yitzhak, Yitzchak, of who inherited this land. And this is what this whole fight is about. And at the end of the day, the Shias and Sunnis, who usually slaughter each other, have come together. They found a common bad guy that they don't like, the Jews, because at the end of the day, the Jews inherited the land according to all 3 religions. They don't like it. They're hoping to take our rule away. And this is what this is all about.
Okay, Benny, your
Just-
perspective.
Just give me a few
I
minutes.
just let me just
guys.
Go
say
ahead.
one thing. Ultimately, if I kidnapped, God forbid, I don't want to say I, but if somebody kidnapped somebody's daughter, son, or what have you, and unspeakable things were happening, what do you think would be the result? Meaning, if God forbid God forbid you had a kid, Adam, somebody kidnapped your kid, took them to some other country, put them in a tunnel, you don't know what the hell could be happening to them, and then your country, say, you live in America, so the government of America says we can get your daughter back, maybe, but we might have to kill 40,000, 100,000 of the kidnapper's family. What would you do? And that's the only way to possibly get them back is there might be an immense amount of casualties on the other side.
Jeez.
Can I,
What would you do?
Benny, go ahead.
No, it's heavy, but what would be?
That's real
All right. Just to address, first of all, they debated about Judaism. Yes, majority rabbis say you cannot go to the mosque where it is.
I thought it was bullshit.
It's
Let's
not
stay-
bullshit. I said majority.
There's a difference between the Temple Mount
chief
and
rabbi
Al-Aqsa.
of
Guys, I want to
Israel-
stay on October
the
7th.
chief
Yeah, it's
here.
about
rabbi
October
of
7th.
Israel
It's about
says
it. Guys,
it's not
you guys,
allowed.
I mean,
Period.
the
Okay, but I'm
details
saying the
matter.
truth.
I
The
apologize.
details
You've been
matter.
warned.
It wasn't meant for that.
Don't talk when
Again,
he's
it's
talking.
about majority. You guys are missing one point, and it's the intent. You mentioned about funding. Palestine has been funded, right? Billions of dollars.
That's not what I said.
What's it? You said funding, that we should stop funding Israel.
No. I said each group said stop killing Palestinians and they will stop doing what they're doing.
No, but you mentioned
One.
about the funding that the government, U.S. government funds.
It's funding Israel.
Right, that's what you said. So
Yeah.
don't say you didn't say it.
You said they're funding billions of dollars to Palestinians.
They did fund billions of
have.
dollars to Palestine.
Where is it? It's passing
Yeah,
through
they
who?
built tunnels.
The Torrance
Now,
Republic.
in any legal action, right? It's very important to define, and there's lawyers here, they'll define it for me, but I'm pretty sure I know because I have many lawyers who I hire. In any legal action, you have to have intent. To build tunnels under Palestine, instead of building subways, better schools, colleges, universities, there was a Jewish person, by the way, who sponsored about $14 million. He's a billionaire.
Can I ask you a
His
question?
daughter was murdered in October 7th. He funded schools and a project of startups in Palestine and in the West Bank. And his own daughter was murdered in October 7th. Why is this no one talking about it? He was sponsoring Palestine. He was pro-Palestine. We are pro-Palestine. They can only be called freedom fighters if there was no intent of building tunnels, and instead of attacking civilians, they just took land over. So they would have, if they would have expanded 1,000 feet of Palestine or Gaza or another 2,000 feet, whatever it is, and they would have stayed their ground, then you will be 100% that they're considered freedom fighters.
Okay, so I have
but
two
there
questions
is
for
no
you.
freedom fighters for people who come and kill civilians. It's like me coming to my New Jersey friend or my neighbor and I start killing him. Like, what's going to happen to you? The police are going to come and take you.
right, but
I
can
mean,
I
that's
ask
just
you
the
a
reality.
question?
What are these school shootings about?
Relax.
Because what you're saying is that they're funding them millions of dollars.
Billions, not
Billions of dollars.
Billions of dollars.
Your claim is that billions of
not my
dollars
claim,
just
it's
to
fact.
build tunnels, right?
Of course,
Is that
it's
what
fact.
you're claiming?
It's fact. It's not a claim. It's fact.
Are you saying that
The monies have been transferred.
Hamas
It's fact.
wasn't given billions of dollars? Here's what I.
I'm not
how
in
did
their
they build the
pockets, so I
tunnels?
don't know.
Next
but
topic.
money
You
did they
ready?
build the tunnels?
wait,
You
I
ready?
have another question.
It's
Cut the
intent
mics.
to
Cut
attack.
the mics. Here we go, because I'm going to ask the question. I hear this all the time. We have a mutual friend, Adrian. He's a Mexican Christian. He has nothing to do with this, but he was a war correspondent in Jerusalem, and he was embedded with Hamas. When I'm saying that he's like, I've seen Hamas do crazy things. I've seen IDF do crazy things. He calls everybody out. And this is the one thing he consistently tells me. And he says, ask this question. He goes, why isn't Gaza Dubai? Why isn't Gaza Singapore? Why isn't Gaza South Korea? I said, well, what do you mean? He goes, the amount of money they've received from the international community, but instead of building up, they build down. Again, this is a reputable journalist telling me, ask this question. So my question to you guys is, you're basically saying that Hamas did not squander billions of dollars. Billions of dollars.
I'm not
They
saying,
could
I'm
be,
not discussing the money.
No. This is what I'm saying. I am discussing the money. I'm asking the question, where did all the money go? Is anybody denying that tens of billions of dollars was funneled into Palestine, Gaza, the West Bank, wherever you want it? You can answer the question. Over the last few decades, what do they have to show for it? Look at Dubai. That's in the Middle East. Look at what's going on there. Okay, so explain to me where all the money went. Go ahead.
Oh, you want? Okay.
No, go ahead.
Oh, wow. I'm finally getting a moment where no one's interrupting me. Here's my question.
No. I don't think you.
It's not a question. I get it.
I asked you a question.
Yeah, I get it.
Where did all the money go?
They blew his ass up.
I mean, who is it getting through? Like, right? Who's stopping it in the middle? It's not like it's going straight to the Gazans or the Palestinians. It's not. It's
So-
stopping through IOF. Come on now.
Stopping through IOF.
Yeah, like the
Israeli
Israeli
Occupation
Occupation Forces.
So you're saying
The
you're
Israelis
saying
are taking
that
the money,
Israeli
yeah.
occupation forces stole billions of dollars?
Yeah, I mean, they're also
So how
blocking.
did
So how did they build the
how did they
Where'd the money
fund
come
the
from?
tunnels? How did they build the
300
tunnels?
miles of tunnels were built with what money and what equipment? It was an open air prison. You said that they decided to attack because of some provocation 10 days earlier. But for years they've been building over 300 miles of tunnels underground, sophisticated tunnel network. Where did the money come from? Where did the materials come from?
I'd be happy to answer your question, Adam. I've been waiting for a while. Okay, so I agree with you that most of that money was squandered by Hamas. There's no denying that. But there's also other factors. You talked about Dubai. You talked about other countries. They have oil. As far as I understand, Gaza does not have any oil. Someone offshore, but they haven't been able to even utilize that because they've also been forbidden trade from the outside world. So there's multiple factors. Yes, I think most people on my side would say Hamas is evil and they fucked over their people really, really badly. But it's not just Hamas. That's a reason. Forbidding a country from doing trade with the outside world, especially when they're a small country, is going to also have a massive, massive economic devastation effect.
I agree with
I agree with you that they are not oil
okay,
rich.
can I ask-
Hold on, yeah, Elica, you're coming right to.
Yeah.
I agree with you. They are not oil rich. Okay, I agree with you that they were sort of forbidden to do more trade. Even more so reason not to squander the money. No, because if there's one thing that gets me heated, is just literally burning money in the air.
Yeah.
Whether that's
The farms,
Jews,
the
Christians,
farms, Adam.
Palestinians, like
Money
farms,
has
they
nothing
took-
to do with it.
Money has everything
Can
to
I-
do with
Well,
it.
no, it doesn't.
Everything has to do with
it was
GDP.
it was an
Can I
open
speak to
air
that?
prison. They couldn't leave.
So hold on.
These people
I've
that
seen-
committed the Hamas attack, they
But-
were
but-
born
but-
in prison,
But
and they were trying to
they're
break
Gazans
two
that left.
things.
There was
If
no
they're-
occupation of Gaza though.
Yeah,
The
but
occupation
there was a-
of
there was
Gaza
an Arab-
was
there
was an Arab
You
blockade.
can't leave
left
Gaza.
Gaza.
You're trapped. You're fucked.
Follow-up
Can I
question. If there were-
answer your?
So
Can I
no,
answer your
guys,
question?
I have to stop this whole
okay, okay.
conversation. I have to, because if you're trapped, would you rather be trapped with billions of dollars or trapped with tunnels? And that's what they
What
decided
are you
to
going to do with the money if
But
you
they're-
get bombed every
they're
4 or
only
5
trapped.
years?
What do you mean?
Can I
It's
answer
called
that?
mowing the lawn.
No.
But
getting
you can
bombed
build
every 4 or 5
hospitals, you
years.
can build
Yeah.
schools, you can build
Yeah.
They
playgrounds.
did. Israel
They
keeps
did, and
bombing
they
them.
literally carpet bombed everything.
I mean, look it up yourself. I could be
Can I-
wrong.
can I-
Okay,
can I-
Sal,
Look it up.
okay,
I might be wrong.
yes.
Adam,
Most of the
I'm
hospitals
okay.
are down now.
How do
Most
you
of the hospitals
build?
have been
How do you
destroyed.
build
Bullshit.
more
I mean,
tunnels
Adam, can I respond?
than the New York subway system?
Right. They were bored.
Can I?
I don't know. They couldn't leave
Can I jump
Gaza.
into
So they're
answer-
fucking just.
Can I jump
shut
Sal,
up.
that
answer
is
on
so
this?
intellectually lazy,
crazy.
brother. They were not just
I'm
bored.
not that smart. I mean, they were
Okay.
just digging tunnels out.
No,
I don't
that
know.
no, but you have to go
Ridiculous.
deeper, literally.
Okay, I'm done.
They
Can I
built the
back up?
tunnels
Can I-
for a reason.
Adam, they have
Can I?
left.
Go ahead.
Can I jump
I
in
don't-
on
I
this?
don't think my mic is working.
Go ahead. Go ahead. Bring the mics back on.
Oh, they were not. Okay.
So step by
Yeah,
step.
go ahead.
Step by step.
What happened to the money?
Okay, so first step.
Yeah.
Okay. I just want us all to understand that we're like pawns on a chessboard arguing. We're not zooming out. Okay. When you're talking about Hamas receiving money, 100% true. By the way, went through Biden. Just interesting. Biden's the one who sent the money to Iran. It's very interesting. But let's go.
For what?
For they sent it to Iran, $5 billion.
Biden's been president for 3.5 years and
Yeah.
he doesn't remember 2.5 of them.
No,
So
but
what
he
do you mean?
did send $5 billion.
Okay, I understand that, but the money's been
I'm coming there.
flowing
I'm
for
coming there.
decades.
I'm coming there. I'm coming there.
Guys, I'm gonna ask questions and I'm gonna want them answered. I
Okay.
don't want BS
I'm ready.
answers.
I'm ready
So
for you.
let me
Sal,
answer.
tell him.
just
He's
need the
they're
answer.
digging for fun.
Let me answer. Let me answer. Let me
You
answer.
need to waste
Go ahead.
time.
Let me answer. Okay.
Yeah.
Let me
What
answer.
happened to the money?
Okay, so Hamas took and built tunnels. Cool. But Hamas is the one that's ruling Gaza. Cool. But why is Hamas ruling Gaza? Why do Palestinians feel the need to support a terrorist group to rule them?
Freedom fighters. Relax.
Yeah, but
To
why?
destroy Israel.
But why?
Tell me
Why?
why.
Isn't it, aren't Israelis occupying Gaza, not allowing them airspace, not allowing them to
But
use their sea?
I have to
not
fact
allowing them-
check you.
No, no.
When was Hamas elected?
2005.
And when did Israel pull out? Okay, so I'm
left
just
Gaza.
doing basic math here,
No, but
guys.
it's not
Yeah.
like they left them and
After
did
the
nothing. They're not
occupation
allowed
was
to leave
removed.
Gaza. They're not allowed, and nobody's allowed to do trades. And it's not like Israel left it and wasn't involved, and they kept bombing it for every few years. It's not like Israel just left Gaza
Okay,
alone.
this is going to be a very poor analogy. Go with me. Adam, I'm not
Can I-
allowed to leave
can I answer
Miami,
the
but you gave me
question?
$1 billion. I'm gonna have some fun in
I
Miami.
don't disagree with
Adam,
you. I
it's
don't
Okay,
deeper
so
than that.
if you give Hamas
Yes.
or if you give the Palestinian
Yes, but
people
Hamas
billions of
doesn't
dollars,
Yeah.
build Gaza.
But Hamas,
Adam.
They build down instead of up. That's the point.
Give me
They
the
did build it.
guys.
They
Give me my
have
minute.
schools and
They
universities.
built it for fun.
Yeah, now they're upset.
Guys,
because
I
They
just
have
want to
all
answer
those
my. I want to
things.
take my
Go ahead.
speech.
Yeah,
they
yeah,
could have had it. They still
Let her
could
go,
have
and
had
then
it.
Elica's
Yeah,
been quiet
guys,
for a little while.
guys, you
Go
got to
ahead.
look at it as like, okay, in all the Arab world, there's the people and there's the governments that have been put on top of them. Okay, Hamas does not represent every Palestinian heart. They're elected because people in Gaza believe that they're fighting for their cause, right?
They got elected 18 years ago.
Sure.
There hasn't been another election.
No, I know. I'm not,
Because Hamas
I'm not
doesn't
saying
allow them.
Hamas is the representation of what every Arab feels. I'm not saying Hezbollah is the representation of every Arab feels. What I'm saying is
Hamas
there's a reason
a
they
terrorist
exist.
group or freedom fighters?
I would say it's like they're both. That's the best way of putting it. They
They're
create
both?
terror, but they're doing
How
it
could you be
in
both?
response to the fact that Palestinians have been occupied. Actually, they began the first, I think, attack on Israel happened after, I think it was Prime Minister Sharon when they walked the
He was
Temple
a
Mount.
dan- he was a dandy.
But
So let me ask you another
yeah,
question, because I'll go
yeah,
here.
yeah.
What's Al Qaeda?
Al-Qaeda was well,
or freedom
again
fighters?
interesting, right? So, well, how did Al Qaeda come about? The CIA was fighting the USSR.
I don't need a history
no, but
lesson.
no, but you can.
Is ISIS a
But you
terrorist? Is ISIS a terrorist group or freedom fighters?
It's like, why does ISIS exist in the first place? That's my question.
Why does the CIA exist? Why does the
Because of the Islamic
Very
revival
Why do humans
movement.
exist?
Because of
Very
Rashid
different.
Rida. That's
Very
why.
different. I'm against ISIS. I'm
ISIS are
against
terrorists,
Qaeda.
man.
Okay,
I'll agree
terrorists.
on
I mean,
that one. Fuck
they're
that.
terrorists.
I mean, this is what I'm saying.
Can I answer your question?
Go ahead. Yes.
Can I answer your question? I think I'm going to be the only person that's actually answering your question, because it seems that there's a panel of people who don't want to answer it because they know that it's not favorable. The reason that Hamas uses billions of dollars to create its terror network and its underground tunnels is because it doesn't care about the Palestinian people. It cares about its ideologies. You talk about the fact that Palestinians in Gaza have been restricted from trade. But then again, why won't you say why? Why won't you say the fact that from every port, they've used those ports to import weaponry to assault Israel again?
Do you have the facts for that?
element, right? And
Because-
Where did the missiles come from? The sky.
If you think
Come
about
on,
the
it's a
fact that
violation, though.
Hamas has had the opportunity with these billions of dollars to actually create a form of protection for the Gazan people, okay? It could have created its own Iron Dome. There would be no civilian casualties if it had its own Iron Dome, even if it wanted to persist with its attacks against Israel, okay? So the answer to all of this is that we cannot keep pretending that Hamas cares about the Palestinian people. What Hamas cares about is its ideology. And I'm glad you mentioned Al-Qaeda. I'm glad you mentioned ISIS. I'm glad you mentioned all of these things, because this is what Hamas is an outgrowth of. It is an outgrowth of the Muslim Brotherhood. And the Muslim Brotherhood learned from Rashid Rida, who is the intellectual founder of the Islamic revival movement after the caliphate, okay? And this is what the goals of Hamas and the Islamic regime's proxies are. And so when you're looking at what's literally right in front of you, which is Hamas's sacrifice of the Palestinian people, and you're still making the claim that they're doing all of this for the Palestinian people, it's literally flying in the face of logic.
This is a straw man, though. No one's making that argument. I'll be the first one to say that Hamas is a terrorist group and they don't give a shit about their people. But that's most people on the pro-Palestinian side hate Hamas.
No,
Like,
hold on. But okay, thank you for that.
Not totally.
But I would love to agree with you. But our friend here, Manal, I said almost.
Yeah.
You're saying that they are not a terrorist group
Because they symbolize resistance, right?
They
That's
are
okay. Can I say I understand
Yeah.
the confusion, okay? Because I've worked with all groups before.
It's not confusing.
The reason why this seems like that there's an argument is because you're forcing. I'm not gonna say us, but you're forcing, let's say, the Arabs to have to defend Hamas or defend those groups because they feel that they represent resistance. We're not defending Hamas per se. We're not defending Hezbollah per se. Hezbollah killed Syrians. Okay, am I pro Hezbollah? No. But why do they exist? Right? Why do they need to exist? I hate that you gave us, not you as Israel. I hate that Israel gave us the reason for Hezbollah to exist.
Israel
Hezbollah. Please let me finish. Please let me finish.
Go ahead,
Hezbollah
finish
did
your
not
point.
exist.
That's a lie.
Hezbollah
That's a lie.
and Hamas did not exist before a nation of Israel. Right?
Yes, they
Al-Qaeda
existed
didn't
on the
exist before the
answer
nation of
your own
Israel.
question.
From the
Why do they
1920s.
exist?
They exist because of the
They existed
remnants of the
before.
site.
Hold on, Elica.
They exist because of the
No,
remnants
that's
of
a
Western
lie. Stop
intervention that
lying.
caused destabilization, and since they're being attacked and nobody's heeding to their call,
This is a
nobody's
false
heeding to their support.
So I have to ask this
Yeah.
question. All these
false.
groups, and I'm genuinely asking this.
Yes.
Hezbollah, Hamas, the Houthis,
Correct.
the Islamic Jihad,
Yes.
Muslim
Why
Brotherhood,
didn't they
the
exist
list goes
before?
on and on and on and on and on. They all exist because of Israel?
Because of
Israel
resistance.
exists.
Yeah, of course.
But he's saying what he's
It's
saying
not
is hold on.
simple.
There is a part of what he's saying that's true, and I'll tell you what it is.
simplify saying-
They exist because they cannot stand that Jews live in the land
But
of
Jews were
Israel.
living there.
Period.
Rule
It's
it,
the
rule it.
fact
Jews
of their
were living
very
there.
existence, and
No,
now
that
for you to
rule
say
it.
that they didn't. The fact that you say that they only existed now with the modern day state of Israel, like the woman on the Zoom was saying, I'm sorry, I don't want to say her name wrong, but was saying, Ella was saying, was that they come out of the Muslim Brotherhood, which existed far before 1948. There have been Jews being attacked and slaughtered far before.
Yeah, but they weren't a terrorist group.
They weren't a terrorist group.
No, they weren't.
No,
Give me one, please. Give me one terrorist group.
How is Hezbollah formed? It's very easy. You want to know how? Iran sent 2,000 quote-unquote volunteers to southern Lebanon in 1982, which I said earlier, when Lebanon decided to drive out the PLO to create Hezbollah. That's how.
And what did Israel do in response to that?
What did Israel do in response to that? Well, when you're asking about the war in Lebanon,
yeah, they invaded Lebanon.
They invaded. They invaded
Ronald
Lebanon
Reagan
absolutely to
called
protect the Christians in Lebanon, and
They
to,
don't give a shit
and
about
to,
them.
Who
they don't
gave you
give a
the
shit
right
about
to
them.
come?
Ask the
Like,
Christians
you
from
know?
Lebanon.
And that's what created
Ask Brigitte
Hezbollah.
Gabriel. Ask anyone from the
Yeah, but here's
Lebanese
the
Christian community.
Are you saying Hezbollah
Hold
would
on.
exist
This
if
is a
Israel
fantasy
didn't
world.
exist? Is that
Hezbollah,
what
you're
you're
right.
saying?
Lebanese threw rice at
Would
them when
Hezbollah
Israeli
exist?
soldiers came
Would
out.
Doctor, I
Hezbollah
hear you. I
exist
hear you. And
if
I want to say
Israel
one
doesn't
thing.
exist?
Your argument is that the terrorists, it's the Jews' fault for living in Israel.
No,
That's
I'm
why
not
the
saying
terrorists
that.
exist.
I'm not saying, yeah, why are you making this a
You just
Jewish
said that.
thing?
No one
made
I never
that
said
claim.
that. I never said
The
it's Jewish
Israelites.
fault.
The Israelis?
The
Is
Israeli
a better
government. The Israeli government.
Because there's
Okay,
an
first of all,
because
Israeli
there's a
government
Jewish
does not represent the
government. I got
Torah
it.
or
Because it's a
Jews.
Jewish
Has
government.
nothing to do
It
with
does.
the Jews.
Israeli
False.
government does not never defend itself.
Guys, it's not
Benni,
That's absolutely false. To say Israel is irrelevant to
Pull up
Judaism?
some stats in a second.
That's
Are
not
you
what I said at all. I
You
didn't
said
keep strawmanning me.
something.
Go ahead.
Based
Because
on
you
your
just make things
reasoning,
up. It's like,
right?
What part of
Based
what I
on
said
your
wasn't true?
reasoning,
Yeah.
Nazis in Germany
Yeah.
is a cause of Jews of Germany.
Right.
No,
That's based
that's
on your
very
reasoning.
different.
Yes,
That's very
that's
different.
exactly
Because
it.
the Jews of
And I wanna
Germany
ask you
weren't
another
killing
question.
Germans.
Is suicide bombing a resistance?
No, it's wrong. It's according.
Okay,
It's wrong to the
so
Quran.
why
It's
is it
wrong
that
to
only
suicide bomb.
Palestinians in the 1990s, which I remember every day in school, we had to say prayers for those who were killed in bombings in buses. How is it that that's the only ethnic group that promotes suicide bombing amongst all the world?
What are you talking about? Who promotes
No one is
suicide
promoting
Yeah,
bombing?
of course, you get paid.
Who promotes-
Yes,
Who
you get
promotes-
paid.
But who? I
What I mean,
understand.
the whatever.
How
the
is it
Hamas
that-
or the
how is it
PLO,
that-
you
Hold
know,
on, hold on.
shit is-
Let him answer the question.
Islam promotes suicide bombing?
I was there when
Not
I
Hamas,
was
it's
there
the
when
whole-
Palestinian
there's
Authority
the
absolutely
Palestinian
does.
Authority promoted it, and you get
The Palestinian Authority
$10,000 a
promotes
month
suicide
per
bombing?
person who committed suicide.
I'd like to see
the
that
head
stat,
of Hamas, by the way, I think who was the lady who was
Some
the
of
head of
that's
Hamas,
true.
whatever, that she said I was proud that my
No, it's
5
not.
kids were martyrs.
Yeah.
She said, and she's part of the Hamas.
No, but I can quote
I
Daniela
forgot what her name
Wise.
is.
I
Saddam
can quote a
is.
lot of Israelis that are like the Hilltop Youth that we need to eradicate
you-
all
By the
Palestinians.
way, are you
Been
rejecting-
for years.
Verbiage is
rejecting
different
his
than
claim?
action. Verbiage is different than
Hilltop
action.
Youth literally burnt an 18-month-old
listen,
alive
listen, but
in a
it's-
village.
we're talking
What
about-
did the
okay,
18-month-old do?
You're making a very bad comparison.
Why?
You're talking about micro crimes
It's not
to a
micro.
macro education. There's a macro education
Okay.
that amongst, again, extremist jihadists
Cool.
that we know even in Saudi Arabia, they said that this is a problem that the West is going to have huge problems with because they don't know
'Cause you
how to deal
created
with
it.
it.
'Cause you
right?
created it.
Okay, but where does it come
But
from?
where's your-
It comes from...
Didn't Biden say in 1986, was it, that he said Israel is the best billion-dollar investment? If there was no Israel, there will be an Israel?
We'll create
That-
one.
Explain
what
that
that
one to
means.
me.
I don't know what
America
I got- I- I
benefits.
I don't know what that
Of course,
verbiage means.
I can
I know
explain
this
It's
very
literally
simple.
word for word
I
what
know
he
very
said as
simple.
to how.
You guys say occupation. I don't know
Yeah.
what occupation there is. All I know is that wall stands
So
there.
wait, you don't agree that
Once
there's
again,
an
I don't
occupation?
get. Of course, it's
So-
not an occupation.
So you don't believe in the
How
ICJ?
do
What do you-
How would they
what
open
do
up
you-
for
Let me
okay.
finish my
electricity?
point.
Put a
Let me
verb-
finish right. You guys don't even explain how it is an occupation.
I would
like to
explain it
explain
to
But once again, let me explain my
110
point.
checkpoints?
And I'll tell you where
Why are
those
they there?
checkpoints
Why are
come
the
from.
checkpoints
From
there?
suicide bombing. And guess what?
Everyone-
20,000 permits were given to people in Palestine to work in Israel,
Yes.
and about 10 to 15% of them were Hamas agents who took pictures and photos to houses to know where to attack.
Yeah,
This
sure.
is known fact.
Yeah, I agree.
We gave opening doors to Palestine. We wanted to create a tri-state
Well, no,
Middle East over
hang
there.
on. Israel
Tri-state
wanted cheap
boroughs.
labor. That's why they were allowed to give
What's
the
the
permits.
difference? We have cheap
They-
labor
they're
here, and we
making
open
more
the
money.
borders in America.
Because Palestinians
There's
are
no
all doing
difference.
jobs.
Come on, guys. At least have
The
some.
Palestinians are cheap labor in
I
other Arab
understand what you're
countries.
saying here because
So are Syrians.
Sure.
Syrians
you're
do cheap
talking
labor in
about-
Lebanon.
Yes.
They're
Hold
those
on,
Mexicans
hold
in
on.
Lebanon.
You're talking about
You know that?
suicide bombings. Nat, I just sent you. I just Pew Research. No clue what it says. I just found it. They pulled. Please pull it up. They pulled every single Muslim country and see which countries approve and disapprove of suicide bombings.
Oh wow.
Nat, do you have these stats? Because I actually want to get into.
Really?
Here's what I've realized. No, we're not.
Let's
we don't
finish.
like
Let's
stats
hear-
now.
let's hear-
Well,
let's
the
hear.
population size, man. There's There's 7 million Jews in Israel.
Also, everyone
There's
here
90
hates suicide
million
bombing.
in Egypt.
Guys, what
There's
just
90
happened
million
here? I said I'm
people
going to pull up stats
This is
and
gonna
start
look
freaking
really
Guys been
out.
asking for
No
facts
one's
the whole
out.
night.
It's just we're all
Hey guys, I'm going to show some stats. No, not stats.
Do it. Pull up stats. Pull
What
up
are we
stats.
talking about?
Pull up stats, baby.
I want to pull up.
I've been using
I
nothing
want to
but
pull
facts,
up a
honestly.
few stats here, guys. Are you guys comfortable with seeing stats?
Yeah, of
Yeah,
course.
but we're-
I haven't
none
even
of us
told you what
support
stats
suicide
they
bombing.
are.
No one here
Oh my
supports
God.
suicide bombing.
Show it the card.
Okay, go
go
ahead.
ahead.
Go ahead.
My question
I
was
want-
different. Is suicide bombing considering resistance?
No, not in my opinion.
Okay, I'm asking because he mentioned it. And I agree with some
Are the-
points.
are
that
the
you
mics
said
still
as
I
well.
want to go over three things because I said earlier, listen, if there's anything I am, FTM. Does anybody know what that means? No.
For the masses.
Follow the money.
Follow the money.
Does anybody not think that money makes the world go around?
Of course,
Yes, it does.
Okay, it does. You talked about the reason the biggest destabilizing force in the Middle East. You didn't even name a country. You just named whoever's funding it.
Well,
cool, all good.
yes.
Don't need an opinion. You already gave it. But I want to follow the money because I actually think there's a major problem with the following the money. Let's see how this works. So suicide bombings you brought up. Do you have any of these stats? Okay. So, and then I want to understand about, do you understand what GDP per capita means?
Yes.
Scroll down. Okay, there should be stats. I just Googled it. It came up. There should be countries that support suicide bombing and that don't. Keep going. Keep going. Is that it right there? Punch in. I can't see anything.
Can you guys read that screen?
Okay. She can pull this up. We usually have bigger TVs here. Okay. Natalya, what does it say here? Muslim views on suicide bombings. What countries?
I know the point is. It's directly correlated to income. So the
countries
richer
are-
countries do less suicide bombing. Yeah, everyone knows.
Oh,
that.
hold on. Not true.
I didn't know that. Actually.
Not true. Pakistan is not a rich country. So Pakistan,
Can we zoom in just a little bit?
yeah,
Pakistan is at
I
the
want to see
bottom.
these stats. Now, if you guys want to argue the stats, have at it. Nat, punch in.
Yes.
So it says that Pakistan, Turkey, Indonesia on the bottom have the lowest. affinity towards suicide bombings.
Yes.
The Palestinian territories
Away from Middle East.
and the Lebanese have the,
The
highest.
highest.
Is anyone objecting to these stats?
No.
Okay.
However,
No, I don't need a however. I'm
okay,
just
go
seeing
ahead,
the
go ahead,
stats here.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Now, you're saying there's a correlation between the amount of money
Yeah.
that a country has.
Yeah, the prosperity that the people in the country have and how likely they're.
So now let's pull up GDP per capita. Because this is actually where all the BS from each side gets negated.
Yes.
So if this is GDP per capita, what is this right here, Nat?
This is the GDP
Okay.
per capita.
GDP per capita. So scroll. So what's the top, Nat? You can talk. What's the
The-
top
the
5,
top-
10 countries?
Top 5 is Monaco, Liechtenstein, Luxembourg, Bermuda, Ireland, Switzerland, Cayman Islands, Isles of Man.
Keep going.
And then all the way to
Qatar.
we have United
Where's the United States?
Up here.
Okay.
We're up
So go all the way to the bottom.
here. Okay.
Okay.
To the bottom. To the bottom. Oh,
All the way to the bottom.
keep going. Keep going. Here we go. Here we go.
And when we get there, can we zoom in, please?
Almost.
Yeah, let's zoom in here.
there.
So go to where it ends. Like it should just be the lowest dollar amount.
Yeah.
Okay. I wish we had a
right
bigger
Just
TV,
tell us,
guys.
what is it?
Oh, you found.
I don't know.
Right
I,
here.
I'm,
You
Right
found
here we
something
go,
we
right
agree on,
here.
That it's hard
Right
to
here.
see the screen.
yes.
And the lights are
There we
going.
go, guys.
You see
Oh, we
it?
agree
So-
on everything.
Now,
Zoom in
because
a
we
little
can't see this.
more.
Okay, scroll
one
up.
guide.
Which Middle Eastern countries can we point out? Afghanistan. How much
Afghanistan.
does the average person in Afghanistan make a year?
Dog shit.
Yeah, but why?
352.
What's the number?
352.6.
Okay. Keep going up.
Okay.
Syria.
Rafi, can you see this?
Yeah, Syria's right
No,
above.
no, no.
us.
Okay,
Syria's right.
Syria,
Afghanistan,
Lebanon.
Syrian,
Where's Pakistan on this?
Pakistan. Let's go
Command
find
F.
We
it.
already know that the more
We've
Qatar,
got
Kuwait, and Saudi Arabia, they're going to be.
Pakistan's
the
right
highest
here.
on there.
Yeah.
1407 is Pakistan.
Okay, so that almost proves your point wrong. Pakistan is a very poor country and they have low suicide bombings.
Yeah,
Okay.
but what's the poorest country?
Yeah, but I
What's
haven't.
support of
So
suicide
okay, so now go to
Who are they gonna
now go to
bomb?
unemployment.
Who are
It's
they
not
gonna
about.
bomb?
It's
It says
not about
lowest
being.
support of suicide bombings, not actual.
It's not being.
bombings.
It's
That's
not
what
about
they
being
say.
So, okay,
poor or not
I've never
poor.
seen this
So-
before. I'm just.
so-
support.
There's a
Oh,
there's a
okay.
confounding variable here that we're not
views.
we're not pointing the finger to. The countries that have the highest rate of suicide bombing are the countries closest to Israel, right? In terms of geographical area. And
Pull
the
up that stat.
right.
Palestinians,
So you're
Lebanese,
Yeah.
you're
Egypt.
admitting that they
And
just
the
hate
reason
Jews.
why-
Jordan.
You're admitting
Yeah,
that they
all
hate
of
Jews.
them are neighboring Israel.
Okay,
I'll
so
tell you why.
explain,
Okay,
okay.
you guys need to understand something.
Because they're not fighting each
No,
other.
please listen. The sectarian divide that exists in the Middle East is the baby of the Sykes-Picot Agreement. Okay, the Sykes-Picot Agreement is when the French and British betrayed the Arabs behind their back when they promised King Hussein an independent Arab kingdom if they revolted against the Ottomans. They lied to his back and they sliced up his kingdom and split it to France and Britain. Since then, they purposefully did these borders so that there's always going to be sectarian divide. As Lawrence of Arabia put it, a spy who was there, we have successfully divided the Islamic bloc such that it can never reunite. One three heads, one in Egypt, one in Iraq, and one in, I think, Hijaz, which is modern day Saudi Arabia. So what I'm trying to say is when you look at the instability of the Middle East, when you look at why there's so much radicalization, it is a product of Western intervention. The biggest question is why didn't that exist before? If Muslims are, let's say, radical per se, just let me finish.
You're
Please. Let me
actually
finish.
admitting.
Okay, there were Jews.
You're
Why do you keep
admitting
saying there weren't
that
Jews?
the radicalization
There were
is because of the
800,000
existence of
Jews in the Levant.
There was
no Jewish rule.
country
You're-
of
Exactly,
Israel
there's
there.
no
You're
Western-backed
No country. There was no
Yes.
country of Israel there.
Yes.
Yeah,
But
in
Israel
Jerusalem, by
is
the
a
way,
Western
Bahrain Jews have
form.
been buying land.
Let me
in
finish because you
Jerusalem
cut me off. You cut me
for
off. So
generations.
as I was saying, the Sykes-Picot,
And there was never a problem, but there were many
Let him finish.
pogroms.
But listen,
Let him
listen.
finish.
I'm trying to connect something. I'm trying to get us to something very interesting. The reason why people have such a lack of affinity towards Israel in the Levant is because Israel represents the Western hand in the region. It represents, as let's say,
No,
Biden
it
put it.
doesn't.
Just let
It
me finish.
doesn't. The
Let me
French
finish. What do you mean that was
Hold
made?
on. Elica, I'm coming right to you after this. Go ahead,
$300
finish this
billion
point.
from
Go
the
ahead.
United
Let me go
States.
after
That's a Western-backed
you had to
region.
go.
Yeah. Okay, so when you see so much, let's say, affinity for suicide bombing, it's almost coming out of an oppression, coming out of like, our hands are locked. We have no other choice. I'm not saying it's right. The Quran goes against suicide, but you can't even kill yourself. in the
Bigotry
Quran.
of low
Just let me finish.
expectations.
So these countries that have high rates of suicide bombings are also the countries that had the most destabilization, the most Western intervention, the most amount of, let's say,
Why
terror
aren't
attacked
Jews
on them
suicide bombers?
between in that region, right? So what I'm saying is the stat may be aligned in terms of money, but it doesn't show that these countries that have the highest rates of suicide bombing are also the countries that have had the most amount of Western intervention being slapped on them and being dropped on them in terms of bombs every day.
That's
okay?
ridiculous.
So Israel...
Educate their kids to bomb themselves.
So
Maybe it's their
I'm
education.
understanding this because
Can I just answer his comment?
like Western imperialism.
Correct.
We need to kill ourselves.
No, that's
what we're saying.
that's not my argument. Because of
I'm not even joking.
I'll do it logically.
Yeah.
Because of Western
Argument is so
because of
funny.
Western imperialism,
Yes.
nobody's heeding our call. Nobody's heeding our bureaucratic solutions. Are trying to tell the world to help us. Therefore, we have no choice. Therefore, there's a power vacuum. Someone says, "Oh, I'm gonna help you guys. I'm gonna do this." They support that regime, and that regime commits atrocities like suicide bombing because they look at it as I guess a simple way where they can hide weaponry under their clothes and do something terroristic like that. But what I'm saying is this comes out of the oppression that nobody's heeding the calls of the Syrian people. Nobody came to the aid of the Syrian.
I got to tell you,
ridiculous,
it's
bro.
and
Can I respond to that?
I'm coming right to you.
Yeah.
Tear this argument apart.
Yeah.
I have black friends.
Cool.
Okay, this is a weird metaphor, and they're like, "Nah, man, you gotta understand, like." My great grandparents were slaves, and I was like, yeah, but you were born in fucking '92, bro.
Yeah.
Like you were born during the Clinton administration. Like you watched The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air with me. Like, what are you talking about? Nah, man, we've been oppressed. It's like, well, at what point are you no longer a victim? At what point do you just take authority for yourself and say, listen, we got to make a change?
Well, that
like
happened-
Michael Jackson said, I'm looking at the man in the mirror. I got to make a change. It's you. At what point, whoever it is, whether it's blacks in America, whether it's Muslims in the Middle East, say, listen, we got to figure this thing out. Because you know who feels bad for you? Nobody. Nobody cares.
They've tried.
80% of the people,
That's the Arab Spring. That's the Arab Spring.
Let me
80% of the
answer
people
this
don't
comment.
care about your
Let me
problem.
answer
20% are
this comment.
glad that you have them. At some point, the excuses got to stop for everyone, and you need to look at yourself and look at your own people and say, what can we do better? Instead of saying, they did it. Western imperialism, Israel. By the way, it works across all ideologies, across all religions. Look at yourself in the mirror and say, what can you do? Rather than they're the bad guy, they're the bad guy, they're the bad guy.
Are you saying
what
they
can
didn't
I do?
try?
Do you think black people
Can I answer his question before he
he
responds? Can I answer the point that he made?
Go ahead, Elica, go ahead.
Okay, so listen, you can't say that this is the result of Western imperialism unless you're going to say that about every single
say
country
that.
that was made out of the same. Can I speak
Yeah.
now? Made
Jake,
out of the
mute the
same
mics while she
Western
talks. Go ahead.
imperialism. Which okay, let me just please every
Go
single
ahead, go ahead.
time. I
This is all
can't get
you.
a word and sentence. Okay. The French mandate created Syria and Lebanon. Syria didn't want that. Syria wanted all of Lebanon, okay? But they exchanged. They agreed to this land for mutual sovereignty. They forewent maximalism, not just Syria and Lebanon, created out of Western imperialism, right? It was also Iraq, Kuwait, Saudi, UAE, all of the countries at the collapse of the Ottoman Empire. Now you say that what happened here was that there was a divide of these Arab heads of or whatever, right? You're actually confessing to the same point, right? You're actually telling on yourself, because the reality is that there's been two ideologies that have tried to destroy Israel since the collapse of the Ottoman Empire. That is pan-Arabism and that is pan-Islamism. And both of these ideologies are based on a supremacist worldview that all of this region must be either one contiguous Arab region or one contiguous Islamic region. And the reality is that that is not reflective of the indigenous populations of the Middle Eastern people that were colonized by Islam, okay? Christians exist there, Jews exist there, Baha'is exist there, Berbers, Amazigh, Druze, you name it. And so when you're saying that the Arab people have not been allowed the right to have Arab supremacy because of Western imperialism, therefore we have to kill ourselves to gain that, you're actually proving the point for us.
Who said that they had to
That's
kill
not what I'm
themselves?
saying. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying the situation in the Middle East has been fabricated by a Western hand. The reason why there's so much division and sectarian divide, and the reason why it didn't exist before the Sykes-Picot Agreement, is because, as Lawrence of Arabia put it, the man who was sent to the Middle East as a spy, is that we have successfully divided the Islamic bloc so that it doesn't reunite. The entire purpose, the reason why the Arabs, the reason why the Arab people view Israel with hostility as a nation of Israel, as a country, is because they view it, and that's why the Arab-Israeli war first began. They view it as a Western seat in the Middle East.
So how do you explain
kamikaze, like Lebanon and Syria and Kuwait and
they
Iraq,
were influenced by Western
seats as
civilization.
well?
They were the most elite people and the most proper people in the world, and they still
I don't understand your question.
You know what kamikaze pilots
They
were?
had a culture of either all or nothing. It was
Right,
more,
but
it
they
was
still
considered
had
worse to be captured than to kill yourself.
Right, but
what
they
am I
still had
saying that's
suicide
wrong, though?
concepts
What am I
where
saying
they would
that's
kill
wrong?
themselves, and they didn't come from
Guys, I'm not
Western influence like you're
I just want to say, I'm not
But
arguing,
is
by the way.
Lebanon and Syria, is
Well, actually,
Lebanon
there
and
was a
Syria
war
also
going
a
on
Western
between
seat?
Japan and
Is it also a Western seat?
it.
Go on.
Right.
They were all
Because
created by
Elica
the
is not
same
here, she can't hear us. Elica, 30 seconds. Finish your point. Go ahead, and we'll move on.
No, my point is that you cannot say that Israel is created by a Western or it's a Western seat unless you say the exact same thing about Lebanon, Syria, Iraq, Kuwait, and the rest of them.
No.
They were all created
But why do
by
you say that? Because from what I understand, all those countries were founded, quote unquote, in the late 40s.
Let me
48, 47, 49. They were all. So explain that.
Let me tell you why I'm saying that.
Yes.
Let me tell you why I'm saying that. Okay, after there was the reason that there was no quote unquote instability before this is because there was one ruler, there was one rule, which was the caliphate, which ruled over the entire region, including all of these lands: Syria, Lebanon, Israel, Palestine, all of them.
And this was the Ottoman Empire.
When that collapsed, okay, in the early 1900s,
Why did it collapse?
right? That's when the Western powers went to the Middle East, not for selfless reasons. Yes, they were colonizing powers, okay? And these colonizing powers had their own interests, but they did create all of these borders. And all of these countries were created by the same Western hand. Therefore, you cannot single out the Jewish state and say this is the Western seat when all of these countries were created by the same Western powers.
No, because here you're missing a very important piece of history. The countries that you're talking about were split during the Sykes-Picot Agreement. The state of Israel was founded in 1948, so it's a completely different way by which Israel was created as a state. You're completely neglecting.
And it created itself.
Well, just let me finish. No, it did not create itself. It did not create the planned delay, the massacre of innocent civilians to displace 700,000 Arabs by the Haganah happened 1 week before, happened 1 month before the Arab-Israeli war. You guys are completely neglecting the facts from your own representatives.
What about the Hebron pogrom? What do you mean? There were other pogroms in Israel and
I'm not talking about
Jerusalem
pogroms. I'm not talking about. I'm saying it's not my opinion. I'm not talking about my opinion. I'm giving you facts.
We're gonna actually go finish last point, and we're moving on to the next thing.
I just want to make one point if we zoom out for a second.
Sure.
The question that was asked that spurred this whole quote unquote history lesson was why, and the statistic was, if I'm not mistaken, 83% of Palestinians support suicide bombings. And your answer is, well, because it's their representative of the West and everything else you just put.
No,
because
that's not
Israel
what
is
I
the
said.
seat of the
That's not what I
West
said.
in the middle of the region. I just think that your response and the discussion that came is very telling, because the question was, why do they support suicide bombings? And that's the culture that was built by the Palestinian
Why?
leadership. Why? That's why you're saying because
Why
Jews
is
were
it that
there.
the
Because
countries-
your
why is
answer
it
is
that the
because
countries
Jews
that
are. It's
support
the
suicide
bigotry
bombing are
of
neighboring
low
Israel? Why?
expectations against your own people.
Can I just
You're
ask a
saying
quick
that
follow-up?
because
Hold on.
you're saying that because there is a Jewish state on the land of Israel.
not because it's a Jewish
wait,
state.
because there is a
It's
Jewish
not Jewish-
state in the
Judaism
land
doesn't
of
have
because there is a
anything
Jewish
apart-
state in the land of Israel. That is why 83% of Palestinians support, according to the stats that Adam put up,
'Cause of
support
occupation.
suicide bombing. That's your
It's not
answer.
because of a Jewish
It's
state.
not
Can I,
about a
guys,
Jewish
am I-
It's very telling.
It's
It's
not
very
about a
telling.
Jewish
of a Jewish state.
appreciate
I'll give
your
you-
It's not
answer.
a Jewish state, so stop referring
It
it
is
back
a
Yeah,
to
it's not
Jewish
even a
state.
Jewish
You
state.
guys
It
can keep
violates
saying
the
that.
Ketubot
Guys,
111a.
you guys can
It
keep
violates the
saying that.
Messianic
You
age
can keep-
prophecy.
you guys can
I
It
just want to
violates-
follow up to something David
You guys
said
can keep-
really
Gabe,
quick,
Jewish
really
state,
quick.
man.
Of course,
Gabe.
it's a Jewish
Absolutely
It's not a Jewish
is.
state. There's
What
a
is the
secular-
word
it's
Israel
the
mean?
people- the people-
What does the word Israel
No, now
mean?
you're using semantics. Who
What's
crea-
semantics? It's called
who-
Israel.
So what if it
Guys,
was
listen to
religious?
me.
What if it was
Who-
religious? What if it was built religiously? Would that be okay?
Well, if it
Let's
was
play
built on
devil's
the Torah,
advocate.
you wouldn't be killing innocent civilians.
We're not killing, we're
For-
defending
Okay,
them.
so
No, you're
pause.
not.
Thank you. Here we go.
yourselves for
Guys, we have about
excuse.
25 minutes left.
Wait, can I get my follow-up
No,
question?
no. Everyone's done.
Next time.
We have about 25 minutes left, and we're going to take this food fight, and we're going to try to actually make a meal for a second. So is anybody down to play a game for a second?
Yeah.
Okay. Woo! So for right now, this is going to be
Shush,
very interesting. You guys are going to mentally switch sides. So you guys are now pro-Israel. Congratulations. You guys are now pro-Palestine. Congratulations. So give it a second. And now you're going to be representing the other side. Think about it for a second. Now you have to argue the other side's point. Let's see if you're capable of this. Hold on.
I'll start.
So,
Can be more
Gabe,
specific.
let's
I'll
just
do it.
let's start with
No
Gabe.
problem
Now,
doing it.
I can
Gabe,
do this, no problem.
you're a Palestinian. If you wanted to make Palestine great again or Gaza great again, what would you recommend?
So I don't have to pretend to be a Palestinian to make the argument for the Palestinian people. In fact, the panel, I'm surprised that no one would even try to push to make this argument. But for the Palestinian people, for the Arabs that live in Israel, whether it's in
They're not
areas
Arabs.
controlled by the Palestinian Authority or in Gaza, please just let me respond. You can then try
They're
to
not
say everything I'm
Arabs.
saying
They're
is wrong.
Arabis. They're not Arabs. They're Levantines.
Okay, just let me know.
Jake, cut everyone's mic and tell who I ask. Okay, go ahead. Go. Yeah.
So I don't have to pretend to be Palestinian to make the argument for the Palestinian people. If the Palestinian people want to live in peace in the region, there should be a movement from the Palestinian people that we don't see, a movement of peace, a movement of education, of coexistence, a movement of economic advancement, not a movement of destruction and promoting terrorism. And not just promoting terrorism, as was said earlier, I'd be fighting against the financing and paying salaries to terrorists, which the Palestinian Authority does, the so-called moderates, right? I'd be fighting against all of the leadership and trying to raise up my people to be members of a fruitful society moving forward. But we don't see that there. And the reason why we don't see that there is because those voices, there are few voices, they have to be in hiding. They have to be in hiding because if they're seen advocating any of these positive changes for their people, they'll be arrested or killed by their own government. So if I were making the argument for the Palestinian people, that's the argument I'd be making. Let's figure out a way to advance our society forward instead of always looking backwards.
Okay. Rabbi Benni, you are now
Pro-Palestine. I'm a
you're
prime minister of
pro-Palestinian?
Palestine.
Okay, you're the
no
prime
problem.
minister. You're Mahmoud Abbas.
Okay. Well,
You're,
no.
Okay, you're not that.
Just
Sorry.
kidding. Okay.
As a Palestinian, what would you like to see done differently?
So I'm going to go to the most realistic possible way. As a Palestinian, they have many countries that would support them. Saudi Arabia, Abu Dhabi, all these places who have already done and fought. Like, remember when Trump went to Saudi Arabia, they have this whole network to fight extremism. Beseech your brothers to fight extremism. Don't lose your identity as a Palestinian. Don't lose your identity as an Arab, as a Muslim. But relinquish this modern day society where in the Muslim world they have this jihadist mentality. Remove it completely. Because once you remove that completely, Israel will have no choice but to give you what you want, because you're going to be a financial powerhouse. You're going to be a tech center. You're going to be able to do so many things that no one else can be doing in that area. That area is a beautiful area. You got prime real estate over there. So if I would focus and beseech my brothers of the Muslim communities and the Islamic communities in order to present and build a new Gaza, a new West Bank. The only reason why you're being taken advantage of is because you're giving it to us, in a sense, by not promoting life, by not promoting a betterment for your people. If you promote life and betterment of your people, no one is going to say, oh, we're going to take over lands, we're going to do more settlements. We're going to say, okay, what can we do to make a tri-state area of the Middle East and start building a cohesive, economy? And that's what all countries do. And if Palestine wants to be a country, act like it.
Thank you. Hold on. You got. Hold on, Alex. Jake,
That's an
are you
after fact,
listening?
not an initial fact.
Okay. Go ahead.
Right.
You are no longer part of the IDF. You are now part of, pick a group in Palestine.
There's a
Pick a-
bunch. There's a few of them. Which one do you want?
Which one do you want to be a part of?
All right. Either way, I'm
An average
guy.
Palestinian.
I think at the end of the day,
How would you like to see your people?
first of all, 20%
succeed.
of 20% of the Arabs living in Israel have more freedoms, like you mentioned, Gabe, than most other Arab countries. They can protest against the country. They can be in the Supreme Court. This is the very common story.
Who can be in the Supreme Court?
Arabs, Muslims,
In
Christians.
Israel?
In Israel,
You're saying
they
that.
can open business.
Posting things online.
Hold on, is it true or
happens
is it not
in every
true?
country, but it's still allowed. It's still allowed. They
Put an Israeli prime minister, former prime minister
hold
in
on,
jail.
let me
Okay.
finish, please.
Go ahead.
At the end of the day, they have more freedoms there than they can pretty much do. They can wear a hijab. They can not wear a hijab. They can be religious. They can be atheist. They have so many freedoms. At the end of the day,
You're talking about Palestinian Muslims that are
that have
Israeli
citizenship.
citizens.
Correct, and
Got it.
they know this, and they know this.
And Christians. Okay.
And at the end of the
Go
day, the Arabs as a whole, Muslims as a whole, have to come to terms with the fact that whether they like it or not, the Jews rule the land now. They can live with us. It is.
Solely about
it's not
religion.
about trying to generalize, but we have to call it what it is.
It's
They're
not calling it
wonderful-
what it is.
It
Because
is.
Christians exist.
There
let's let him finish. Go ahead.
are wonderful people among all spectrums. I'm trying to create peace here. The reality is, if Gazans come to terms with the fact that it's never going to be from the river to the sea, you're going to have all the land, and the Jews are going to go by, but we're going to go to Mars. We're here, whether you like it or not. Dark-skinned Jews, lighter-skinned Jews from all walks of life, we're all Jews. We're back in the land. If you can come to terms with that, we can actually have a peaceful coexistence. So you're going to have to. We can make Gaza, Palestine. We can have, what would you call it? Emirates. They have their pieces of land. They have local governance. The Israelis work together to give them funding, economic help, so long as they don't continue to attack us. This is the I think the main focus of this entire conflict. They don't want Jewish rule.
Got it.
This is what it is.
Elica, as our foreign diplomat in California right now, you are going to be
Yes.
pro-Palestinian for this conversation. What would you recommend to your people for
Sure.
more success and prosperity?
Okay. As a Palestinian, I come to the table and say that I can offer certain things. I can offer, de-radicalization. I can offer de-radicalization, and I can offer a promise for peace. But what I need in exchange is certain things. Now, first of all, let me just state that in the past, yes, we have rejected state offers for two-state solutions. That has been a very difficult thing because this land is very personal to us. This land is very personal to us, and it's very sentimental. And to just agree to share the land is not difficult. It's not difficult for us. It's not easy. It's not easy for us, and it's not easy for Jews. So this has taken some time for us to get our heads around this. The agreements that we rejected previously, there were some things that weren't completely satisfactory, such as the right of return, which is an important thing, and such as there being separate cantons of the land rather than one contiguous region. And so what we ask is that we will be willing to collaborate with Israel, with the Shin Bet, to foil future terrorism. But what we need from you is that we need a partner that is willing to negotiate for peace with us. And right now, we don't feel like your government is willing to do that.
Okay. I got to tell you, that was a very nice diplomatic conversation from Jews who are pretending to be Palestinians in order to get advocacy for the betterment of the Palestinian people. So that's great. Thank you. Now you guys,
Let's start with Karim.
Can I
let's start with you guys. You guys are now
Israeli, pro-Israel.
pro-Israel.
Yeah.
What would you recommend to your people to see more peace and prosperity in your land as a Jew and Israeli? Go ahead.
As a pro-Israeli, I would say that I have the right to live in those lands. I have the right for self-determination. However, I would tell my government to accept its apartheid past, move the same track like Canada did with kind of the indigenous people, accept the ICJ rule, International Court of Justice, that ruled to remove settlements in the West Bank. So I would respect international law. I would, first of all, address really the misconception as an Israeli to say that the Levantine Muslims and Christians are actually the sons of Jacob. They're closer to Jacob than they are to Ismail, according to genetic data, published 2000 by the Cell. So every time an Israeli from my country is killing a Palestinian, actually every time an Ashkenazi Jew is killing a Palestinian, they're killing someone who's closer to a Palestinian is closer to a non-Ashkenazi Jew genetically than non-Ashkenazi Jews are to Ashkenazi Jews, which makes this whole situation hilarious. Published by also a human immunology test that showed there's antigens on the cells of the Levantines in their cells that are only common between the people of the Levant, including non-Ashkenazi Jews. So they come from the same ancestor, they share the same ancestor, who lived in South Canaan, which I believe is Jacob. So I would say that these are our brothers, this is our family, we're killing our own people. We need to create a new kingdom, a holy land, that respects Abrahamic coexistence at its covenant, that allows Muslims, Levantine Christians, and Jews to live peacefully and have the common enemy of, let's say, atheism, or the common enemy of, what's it called?
Wokeism?
Wokeism, exactly. That's what I was trying to get
Okay.
to. Exactly. So I think the only way, as an Israeli, that's what I would push for. I would push for that these are our cousins. Why are we killing the only people who believe in the same God that we believe in? Let's accept the International Court of Justice's rule to remove the settlements from the West Bank because it's illegal. Let's remove the occupation. Let's remove the 700-kilometer blockade. If you remove that, then there's no need anymore for a Hamas. You discredit Hamas immediately. You know, if Israel just says, we actually, international community, you're right, we did commit the Nakba, we did do the apartheid. Just by those words, Hamas and Hezbollah would no longer exist. They wouldn't have a reason to exist. But I think forcing Israel's existence in its current secular kind of right-wing state with its current political party is just going to lead to a continuous bombing of neighbors. It's just going to increase the amount of enemies against Israel, which is not going to be sustainable. And then the common Israeli is going to feel that he is more and more scared to identify as an Israeli. Because now more and more countries are going against Israel, right? So I think it's unsustainable. I think if Israel wants peace, it should take the route of apologizing for the things that it has done, since it's the state that it's backed, that has all the money, etc. Let's say be the big person, if you want to put it that perspective. Apologize for your background in history, the Nakba, plan delay, apartheid, etc. When you do that, the Hamas and Hezbollah no longer need to exist. And so...
That wasn't pro-Israel.
What do you mean? What wasn't from Israel?
That wasn't pro-Israel. Can you try be pro-Israel?
It is pro-Israel. I believe that's the only...
Okay.
I do believe that's
Thank
the
you for
only
that.
way that Israel can exist.
Oh boy.
Okay, Sal,
Yeah.
it's interesting because you're Christian,
Yeah.
Palestinian.
Yeah.
You know, there's been things you've agreed, disagree with, you know.
Yeah, of course.
Sometimes you say profound things, and sometimes you're thinking they're just digging tunnels for fun.
Yeah, well,
You know, everyone loves
They
those.
gotta smuggle in guns and food somehow.
So, Sal, you are no longer Christian. You are no longer Palestinian. You are now
Let me be a crazy
Israeli.
Let me be those.
You are Israeli.
Woo! I would bomb
What
more.
What would you recommend that your fellow Israelis do for more peace and prosperity in the land?
for more peace?
Yes,
So you want me to pretend they want peace
go for it.
in a pretend type world? The truth, but see, I don't like pretending like this because the truth of the matter is Benjamin doesn't want any peace right now. So you want me just to pretend?
Yeah,
that
just
he
like
does
everyone
want peace?
else pretended that they
didn't-
were something else.
They didn't do a
You're
pretty
gonna do
good
the
job
same
of.
thing.
They didn't do a pretty good job of being Palestinians, to be
didn't
honest. I'm sorry, but I think we did better than the other side.
wasn't
What's-
Palestinian.
Sorry. we So
actually-
if you want me to act like, what kind of Israeli you want me to act like? The one that wants peace?
I want you to be
or
an Israeli who wants to see peace and prosperity in the land. Go.
that wants to see peace and prosperity. I would try to end the occupation, but that would have to be slowly. There's no way of ending the occupation after bombing the shit out of Gaza and saying, you're free now. You want to come to Tel Aviv? Now, that's just not going to happen. Like, we're at a point where there may not be a return. It is so bad.
It may take 75 years or so, but you pretending about peace right now, that is just, I'm sorry, it's hard for me to put this into.
Continue.
So it's hard.
That was a nice.
I mean,
It's just hard for me to put into words.
I don't want to
man, because
interject,
it is-
but
go ahead.
But and I'm going to come to Alex.
Sure.
But it was pretty hard for Americans to make peace with the Nazis and Germans. Well, they did it. Same with the Italians. Same with the Japanese.
Yeah.
So there are.
I mean,
there is evidence of not being closed-minded and actually making peace with your enemies. You know, they say you don't make peace with your friends, you make peace with your enemies.
That's a good one.
So, at some
I've hung
point,
out with Israelis.
I mean, how long do you want the perpetuation of violence? Another 100 years, 1,000 years,
what's
million
happened
years?
in the last 11
At some
months
point-
may last 50 years. That's the sad part.
I
now,
don't disagree.
If I could just end it and say, end the war, Bibi's worried about his own career. Now, if it's true that one man is responsible for continuing this war to save his own ass, and 40,000 people are dead and 1 million this way and displaced in Lebanon because of one man, like, that is sickening. Like,
Well,
I mean,
because
if you want real talk here, let's do some real talk. We got 40,000 people
what about
dead
the terrorists?
in Gaza
What about
right
the
now.
terrorists that still need the hostages
So, I
held
mean,
under the tunnels?
I'm sorry,
How can
I
you-
got
how
a
can
little
you not-
over-
How can
No,
you
it's
not?
okay.
No,
doesn't
man, like,
legit-
I mean, like, we're
Hold
talking
on,
about
hold on,
history,
everyone had a
and
chance.
everything, and like,
I like
what,
a
the,
one
what
sec.
the F? Like, I mean,
Thank
this
you.
is serious, dude. I mean,
Okay.
people are dying, and there's a fucking hurricane coming tomorrow, and this is really serious stuff, and we're playing games here. Anyways, okay, I'm done.
for
Thank
that.
you, next.
Alex,
Sure.
pretend, because you're half Jewish. Now you have
Half
to pretend that
Jewish.
you're
Been to
fully
Israel
Jewish.
many times, yeah.
There you go. What would you recommend for your Jewish people for
Well, I
peace
think-
and prosperity in the land?
Yeah, I think the first step is you have to oust Netanyahu, Ben-Gvir, and Smotrich. You have to oust the far-right government Israel, install a more moderate government. I think that's the first step because Netanyahu is never, ever going to want peace for the reasons that were already mentioned. I think second of all is you need to come to some kind of ceasefire. The endless war, the bloodshed can't continue. All it's doing every time you kill a Palestinian child, you make the father a Hamas terrorist, right? So there has to be some kind of ceasefire. There has to be some kind of two-state solution. And again, Netanyahu doesn't want that, but you want an Israeli leader who wants a two-state solution with mutual security for both sides, maybe some kind of UN or some kind of, Arab, like Saudi Arabia or some kind of Arab League where they monitor the borders. But you need some kind of a solution that leaves both sides feeling secure and both sides have their dignity and both sides have some level of independence. That's kind of what you
Okay.
need.
That
And I
was-
would also take that dude, Marwan, who's sitting in Israeli jail, who kind of wants peace, and let him out. And I think he could be a good leader potentially.
Okay, Manal, you are no longer Jordanian Palestinian. You are now
I'm only Palestinian.
Jewish Israeli.
Okay, so
What would you recommend for your people
so I
to
know
have peace and prosperity in the land?
finally, okay, I don't want anyone to interrupt me. Just hear me out so that way I can fully finish one point in this whole entire podcast today. I mean, we say as somebody that's pretending to be Israeli, not in our name. So like to actually implement that, we actually have to apply pressure for the IDF to stop killing Palestinians. And therefore, once the killings stop, Hamas will vanish. All of these killings of innocents, of children, the infrastructure, the destruction is beyond repairable at this point. So I would actually offer to rebuild those cities for the Palestinians, rebuild shelters, provide medical aid, provide just general food, end the forced starvation, help them actually advance in their life, which is that's what's happening right now. And we can all agree on that. And we can also stop making this about religion and making it about humanity. Okay? That's the first thing we need to stop doing. Is it creates division, in my opinion. So let's just stop doing that and speak human to human. First step is agree to a ceasefire. Release the hostages on both sides of the party. And just stop the both-sided bombardments. And at that point, there would be coexistence so that way both nations can actually try to rebuild. Because it's coexisted before, it shouldn't be a problem right now.
Okay.
That is my
Thank
point.
you for that. Well, guys, that was actually my favorite part of the conversation. It was the one time that you weren't yelling back and forth and food fighting. But it just made me show when you put yourself in another person's shoes, you actually have to be a little bit more reasonable. So maybe we need to play more games instead of just siding. Now, we've got about 10 minutes left, and I would like to end on a happy note. So can we try to do that? Now, we brought out a couple conversations about what could be done. You know, the two-state solution. We talked about the killing. We talked about the hostages.
I'm a one-state solution
You're a one-state
for
solution.
everybody.
So am I. No two states,
here's
just one
what
nation.
I want to ask.
Yeah.
Peace, happy ending, coexisting.
That's where you're left.
The two-state solution, one-state solution, is it even possible? I would like you to look in the camera and give your best case for peace in the Middle East, what you would like to see. Let's start with the lovely Elica over there, because I know she's running short on time.
Yes.
The stage is yours. Everyone has a minute or so. Give me your State of the Union address to Palestinians, Israelis, Middle Easterns, and people all around the world, how we can create peace in the Middle East.
Yes. Okay, so first of all, let me just start by saying that it's a gross misconception that people think that these proxy groups only exist to defend Palestinians from the occupation and the like. These groups themselves are based on a revivalist movement, and they have explicitly stated themselves that they will never concede 1 inch of the land to Israel, and that they will keep going until Israel is entirely one state under Sharia law. That is their stated goal. And so there cannot be any peace with Hamas. Hamas will not stop. It will never stop killing. It will never stop attacking. Even if Israel becomes the most perfect state of all time, these groups will continue to attack. Therefore, there is only one path to freedom. There is only one path to peace. There's only one path to security, and that is the end of jihadism. Jihadism is the cause. It is the cause of every single death since October 7th and before that. It is the cause of every single unrest, and it is also the cure. The end of jihad means that there will be no more attempts to eliminate Israel just because Israel exists as a Jewish state. It means that people will accept Israel as a state. And once that happens, once they accept Israel as a state, that's when both sides can actually agree on mutual respect, mutual sovereignty, mutual self-determination. And there can be an Arab state and a Jewish state, whatever you want to call it, whatever you want. If you want to call it Palestine or whatever it's called, there can be 2 states. So to answer your question, how do we get to peace? This is not just my opinion. It is the words of the proxies, the militias, and the jihadists themselves. They will never stop until all of time, until they destroy Israel. And so to get to peace, the jihadists have to go.
Thank you for that. Rafi, you're an IDF soldier. You've seen some stuff, I assume. But you're actually, other than Benny, maybe the most calm person on the panel. I don't know. Nobody's calmer than Rabbi Benni. But what is your camera's over here, what is your solution?
Right into the red, the green. Which
Yep. To peace in the Middle East.
Like a sniper.
I mean, it'll be...
Yeah.
Like use
good,
that sniper.
He's good.
Sorry.
I think ultimately a 2-state solution isn't viable because you're ultimately not giving either side what they want. A 1-state in theory sounds nice, but for all of the quote-unquote Palestinians to come back wouldn't be realistic for a Jewish state. You need a Jewish majority. I don't think any Arab country would be willing to have another group, overwhelm their population. In an ideal world, if there were a small enough population of Arabs / Muslims or Christians that could live in the country, then we can probably manage it fine. I think the best solution would be to have Emirates, to have Gaza as is. It wouldn't necessarily be called a Palestinian state. They can do whatever they please. They have freedom of religion, press, etc. And they have Gaza. They have parts of the West Bank. They have other villages like Nablus, etc. And we can live in peace. I think it's doable. But the idea of having a Palestine in replacement of Israel is just not viable. I think that's what most of them want. So
okay, Rabbi Benni, you are now Prime Minister Benni of the land.
I appreciate that.
What is your methodology to peace, 2-state solution? What's your solution here?
Well, my solution is a utopian society where live and let live. and acknowledge that this land is the land of Israel, as Prophet Muhammad has written in the Quran. And I wish everybody to understand that we are here to coexist together. And Judaism and the Judea state in history, from King Solomon to the Hashmonaic rule, always had other nations' residents in the country. And there is no problem for us to do so. We only ask that we live and let live. Every Jew wants to build a family, and I presume and I know every person who's a Muslim and wants to build a family as well. So if we really focus on building families and economics, we will succeed as a multi-national country with a one-state solution where everybody can live together.
Thank you. Now, Gabe, you were a mayor of a very nice city here in Miami. Now you're the leader of of Israel, Palestine, whatever it is. What's your solution to peace in the Middle East?
The question is whether there can be what can we do to advance peace in Israel and in the region. And I think first we could talk about what can happen. There's no piece of paper that Israel could sign that would bring peace. There's no piece of land that Israel can give to anyone, whether it's the United States, United Nations, the Palestinian Authority, or any other international body that would bring peace. I think we are 1 year away, just 366 days past the worst terrorist attack against Jews since the Holocaust of October 7, 2023. And now we have Hezbollah attacking Israel and other enemies attacking Israel. This is a time about existence and survival for Israel, which Israel will survive. This needs to be, for there to be quiet, not peace. For there to be quiet, Israel needs to be strong. The only way to ultimately bring peace is through strength, and that's not just a saying. That's the only way for there to be quiet in the region. We need to enforce and implement different laws in the region to make sure that children in the region, all children, Jews, Muslims, Christians, are not being indoctrinated. No one's being indoctrinated to kill, to murder, that their whole reason for existence shouldn't be the murder of other people. It should be being able to live on the land. Once we accomplish that, and we're generations away from that, then we can start talking about what we can do to have a permanent peace. But we have to focus on quiet and prosperity for everybody today.
Okay. Who would like to go first? Manal, let's go ladies first here.
Sure.
We are now advocating for peace. We would love to see a solution to end the violence. What's your solution to peace and prosperity in the Middle East?
Well, for our tax dollars to stop funding those acts, for starters. Second of all of you mentioned something in relation to Islam. I think we need to also stop making it about religion. Again, the point that I'm making, because it is causing division rather than it is actual coexistence. We're not speaking progressively. Third of all, I think we need to agree on the fact that right now it is a verbiage matters, so it is a genocide, and we need to address it as such in order to be able to move forward. Fourth of all, it is only a one-state solution for me. I am not a two-state solution girly. We need to also just address the facts of when this started. You compared it to the Holocaust. There are Holocaust survivors that are actually advocating for Palestine. So you should probably also sit within yourself and reflect on that, because they are saying not in our name. So I would say the only way is to either come to a conclusion with a ceasefire, which is Bibi has actually declined multiple different times, as we have seen. Our tax dollars need to stop funding those missiles and those Iron Dome for Israel, and then that's where peace starts, by ending the killing of the Palestinians. You guys don't want those militant groups, then stop creating them by killing their fathers, their sisters, their mothers, and raping them in front of each other. Like, it's just all very disgusting.
You're saying it's creating a vicious cycle of violence. Is what
correct. So stop it.
It is just falsehood. They're raping children. I mean,
we're not going to address that. I'm not. It is my time. It is my mic time. So let's all such stop.
Yeah, we're not going to agree.
In order to,
We're not gonna agree.
yeah, we already knew that since we sat on this panel that we're not going to see eye to
because
eye.
you said
But
there's different levels of facts, and there's different facts.
there
It's not
has been
true. There's
facts, and
one
I have
truth.
been addressing them, but
There's only one
I
truth.
continue to get cut off. Either way, stop the killing, agree to a ceasefire, and just stop it.
You said
not
one
that
word.
simple.
I'm gonna stay. You said the progressive. What did you say about progressive?
that we're not being progressive right now because we are not being aware of the actual history. You guys' timeline is different than the Palestinian timeline.
only one
Different
timeline.
than. I'm sorry.
There's only one timeline. There's only
There's
one
not a
set
one
of facts.
timeline.
That's
I've
a whole,
actually
you're
had
gonna be
multiple
factual-
conversations with like Zionists and Israelis and Jews. You guys are also mixing Israelis and Jews together. Like it's not the same thing. First of
It
all,
is the same
and
thing.
also
really is
no,
the
it is
same.
not.
It
And
is
you
the same.
also
I'm half Jewish. I'm not Israeli.
exactly, and
No, it's the
you
same.
also
You're
addressed that the
misunderstanding.
Prophet
The modern-
Muhammad said in the Quran that it is
It
Israel's
is.
land.
It is.
Where?
Many
What
imams
verse?
said it. I
It's
don't
the
know their
children of
verse.
Israel, the
but
children of
many
Israel.
imams say that, and they quote the exact verse. I'm not a listen. They quoted
It's
Jewish.
called the children of
facts.
Israel, not the
Funny
land of
Israel.
Israel.
What's the difference?
Children
Can I-
of Israel.
What's the difference?
No,
Can I ask a question? Can I ask a question? Did the Islamic Republic and the Taliban get created because Israel killed their parents?
No, it got created because the CIA wanted to fight the USSR.
No.
That's exactly why it was created.
That's not. The Taliban, yes, correct. The Taliban, yes,
thank
but
you.
the Islamic Republic was not created
No, it wasn't.
by the.
Which Islamic
by the
Republic?
United
Iran?
States.
Are you talking about Iran?
Sorry, the Islamic Republic. Khomeini was not created by the
Yeah, how
United
did the Khomeini
States.
come to power? Wasn't that by removing the Shah? Who removed the
By
Shah?
a coup. By a coup.
By the CIA.
by a
The CIA,
coup.
England.
the CIA removed the Shah. This is known.
Who killed Khomeini's family to make him a terrorist? Nobody, right? Because
not-
you don't have to kill
but this
someone
is
to
a
make a
mis-
So
terrorist.
let me ask you a question. So if
Exactly.
everybody bombed your family, let's just say hypothetically speaking, are you not going to be angry enough to resist?
You know what?
What are you
In
gonna do
all
about
of
it?
the I'll answer your question right now.
Yeah.
In the past 45 years, this regime has lynched my family from cranes.
We're not
okay?
supporting that
And-
regime, though.
And, no, let me answer her question. For the past 45 years, until this day, if one Iranian person, okay, takes the child of even a mullah,
not even talking
of the
about
Islamic
the
Republic
Iranian
and
regime,
kills
though, like-
them, absolutely not. That's disgusting.
So why are you
and I would
advocating
never
for
support
bombing
it.
their embassy?
Okay. Guys, we have 5 minutes left, and I want to get to everybody.
Yeah.
Alex, what's your best solution for peace and prosperity? in the
Yeah, I
region?
mean, I think there's no lack of good solutions. I think a two-state solution will probably be the best one. I think a one-state solution will not work simply because Jewish people in Israel will not accept an Arab majority, and I don't actually blame them for that, especially given all the vengeance that's in the air. The problem is that you have two sides who hate each other right now. There's more blood than ever, and there's more vengeance than ever. So if you're going to try to get Israelis and Palestinians to come to the table and negotiate in good faith, that's going to be very, very hard, especially when it comes to two-state solution. You have to start off with a ceasefire. That's going to be the first step, and there has to be goodwill on both sides. But again, right now you have extremists in charge of both governments. You have with Israel, you have Ben Gvir, Smotrich, and Netanyahu, and then obviously on the Hamas side, you also have some pretty crazies. So the solution is, again, it's really hard because, again, you have so much vengeance and people hate each other so much and they all want revenge, right? Oh, you did this to me, you did that to me. And there's blood that's been spilled on both sides. And a lot of innocent people have been killed on both sides. At this point in time, yeah, there's more Palestinians dying. But there's been points in time, to grant you guys what you just said, where Jews were the one that were being persecuted and killed. So it's really tough. Like, I think that ideally a two-state solution, but you have to basically get everyone in the Middle East to have amnesia and forget about the past.
Two states would
Okay.
never work, unfortunately.
Sal,
Yeah.
what's your best advice for peace and prosperity in the region?
Oh boy. I'm probably gonna skip that one if that's okay.
Sal,
I'm gonna leave that one to Jesus. You know,
Okay.
Christ is King.
That's the solution.
That's the
That's the
solution,
solution.
Jesus.
That's not a wrong answer.
I'm not gonna
good
get
luck
to-
getting the Jews and the Muslims to accept that, but stay tuned on the next panel
They do
that we
believe
do.
actually that
Utopia
Jesus
season
is
2.
gonna come back.
Go ahead, Karim.
If I'm hello, yeah. So if I'm addressing the people, I would talk to the people of light. I would talk to the people who are submissive to God. I would talk to the followers of the Torah, the Bible, and the Quran. I would say far too long the Western hand has really delved into the Middle East to divide the people of the sons of Abraham. And what we need to realize is that the Bible talks about this land for the sons of Jacob, and that the Palestinians, Syrians, Lebanese, and Jordanians are closer to Jacob than they are to Ishmael. This is a big charade. This is based on hate. We need to realize that all our peoples have the right to live in those lands. This is why I believe the Torah did not explicitly say it's only for the Jews. And I think it's really, what we're fighting together is extremists. We're fighting Zionist extremists like Ben Gvir. We're fighting Muslim extremists. We're fighting Christian evangelical extremists. So we really need to realize that the fight here is between the people of light and the people of darkness. And we need to stand up together to create a new kingdom, a new land that upholds the Abrahamic Accord, that upholds the Abrahamic Covenant as its constitution, that allows the Abrahamics to live in full equity diversity, inclusion. Never thought I'd use those words, but you get me.
This guy's going full
T's. I'm
DEI
not
right
gonna go
now.
there. But really, that's what I would say. I would say we need a new kingdom that stems from the Euphrates to the Nile, that allows that there is an Abrahamic kingdom, a holy land, a kingdom of light. I call it people of Shem. That's what we do at Levantines.com. We try to focus on the kingdom of Shem. Noah's
Wasn't
son.
that as Noah's son?
Noah's son. Sham. That's where Sham comes from. The Levant. The word Shami.
Shami. Semites, yeah.
So I believe that a lot of us are Shamis. This is our land together, and it is us against Western intervention. The West does not care about us. If you're Jewish, remember the history of how they massacred 6 million Jews. If you're a Muslim, remember Sykes-Picot. If you're a Christian, remember, especially as a Palestinian Christian, that in Bethlehem you can't even celebrate Mass if you're a Palestinian Christian under occupation. We're fighting extremists. We need to come together as the observance of our books and the people of light to spread the message of light, create a new kingdom that upholds the Abrahamic faiths and allows us all to live in peace. That's my piece.
Before I wrap, just because you brought up
Yeah.
woke, you brought up DEI just now, you brought up progressive.
Don't worry, I'm not a lefty. I'm not a lefty.
I'm not. I gotta ask, what would happen? This is just me asking a question before we wrap.
Yeah.
What would happen to the gays for Gaza
Yeah.
in Gaza?
They would get beheaded.
Yeah. Well, the thing is,
What would happen to them?
But remember, when I started, there was a rabbi called Rabbi Jacob Dehan, Israel Dehan, who was murdered by the Haganah just because he wanted to advocate for anti-Zionism.
Sometimes you're too smart for your own good.
No,
What would happen to the gays for Gaza?
Their answer is essentially, I grew up in a middle-class family.
What?
What does that mean?
That's the Kamala Harris. The Kamala Harris.
Harris.
Doesn't want to answer a question.
Can I end with one quote?
Because
I got it memorized.
Yeah, go ahead.
I've been trying to memorize this. This is a former retired Shin Bet general, Amir Alon. He says, "If I would fight the Israelis to achieve liberty." His words. Look it up. I just had that memorized.
Okay.
There's a lot of people on both sides that play the other side.
I
No,
want to understand
there's a
just
lot
the
of-
gays for
of course
Gaza,
there is.
just because
The
queers
gays-
for Palestine. What would happen?
Here's another quote. Tokenization is racism.
Okay.
I'm gonna just
So
say something.
That's another quote.
I
That's another
personally
quote.
don't believe in using like the labels. If you're for humanity, you're for humanity. I don't care what you identify as.
Yeah.
So if you're gay for Gaza, queer for Gaza,
They'll have your back.
That's a very
I
deep-
don't. I don't care. Are you for
That's another
humanity?
podcast.
This is a whole other
that's kinda
conversation.
where
What do you
I'm
mean
at.
by
Like,
what
I
do you mean
don't-
by gays? Maybe
If you're
clarify.
holding up a gays for Gaza sign
Yes.
in Gaza,
Yes.
what would happen to you?
Okay,
I don't
so
know,
what?
honestly.
Dude, it's a Muslim type thing. You can't
No,
do
no,
that,
no,
dude.
of course
What
you
kind of
don't.
scenario
No, but
is that?
there are
Come
gays.
on,
There are
Adam, you can't
gays.
end
There are
the
gays in
podcast
Gaza.
on
There are, of
fucking
course, there are
gays
gay
on
people
Gaza.
No, I
everywhere.
was just simply
Dude, that's
asking
not
that.
cool.
There's
It
gay
was a
people
simple-
everywhere.
Bring a Palestinian in Tel Aviv and make
I
a
was a
sign, you know,
simple
make a
question.
question.
Okay, you're being a little too specific, but yeah, there are gay people everywhere. So
There's gay people in
You
Palestine?
know what? At the
I mean,
end of
I
the
wouldn't
day,
know.
you have to
Openly
accept
gay
the
people in Gaza, you're
limitations.
saying.
I would not
There are-
know.
there are-
You're not
but there
living
are
long
gay
enough
people.
to actually
There are
see
gay
the
people.
day.
You have
The
to-
answer is they're beheaded. They're thrown off buildings.
They're not
and-
there.
Actually,
They're not
okay,
living long
relax.
enough
They
to see
live
the
freely
day.
in
Give me-
Gaza.
give me
Right?
proof.
You have to-
Life is
you
easy
have
when
to
you make
accept
it.
I tried to interject a little quick question, and just like that, powder keg. Because what I hear is if a gays for Gaza was in Gaza, they would be beheaded. But anyway, guys,
I don't think they would be beheaded.
I don't know if we're living in reality for this answer.
Yeah, but
because
I
I've
mean,
heard
if
they're not exactly fans.
Excuse me, as a Christian,
Can I just make
if
a
you're a
point?
Christian in Israel and as a Christian and you're preaching for Jesus, you're getting attacked from the settlers. You know, so there are always going to be people who are
That's
very,
not
very,
Israel,
who are
that's
very.
the West
What do you mean?
Bank.
That is true. That is
Islam,
true.
halal is
Last
halal,
week-
haram is haram.
There's Christians in
What's right is right,
Anyway,
what's
guys,
wrong is wrong.
here's what we're gonna do. Thank you,
Listen,
Jake.
Can I just make one comment about
all right,
that?
10
because
seconds.
at the end of the day, you have to be honest and respectful about what the tenets of each religion are. They actually asked people in the West Bank about what they think about queers for Palestine. They said absolutely not. We reject that. Don't bring that near us.
Yeah,
Islam
because
So
rejects
the Jews don't
black
accept
and white. If you're really
homosexuality
bringing it
either.
down
What
to
do you mean?
religion.
Let me just make my point. Let me make my point. Islam rejects homosexuality.
So does every
it's
Abrahamic
actually but at the end of the day, that is a tenet of its religion. So you can't, if you're going to say that that's not the case, then you're actually being dishonest and disrespectful to the religion and what it stands for.
Christians also reject homosexuality.
Yeah, every religion
religion.
rejects homosexuality.
That's true.
we moved
That's
on.
true.
All right, guys.
We agree on that. We agree on that.
Thank you. All right, guys. Let me just give the
We
wrap
should fight
up.
wokeism.
Guys,
I think that's
by the way,
the answer.
just hold on. Everybody, give yourself a round of applause. Go ahead. Go ahead. You sat here and you only fought a little bit.
It was mostly
and
peaceful.
thank you.
Respect
it was
for
mostly
you, Adam. Respect for you,
peaceful.
Adam, for getting everybody on the same table. Respect for you.
Thank you. Thank you guys for
making this
being here.
happen.
I know there's a hurricane about to hit Florida.
Let's run.
You came from Canada. You drove from Orlando. You came from Canada. Both came from Canada.
They're from Canada?
You came all the way from Miami.
Miami,
Wow,
yeah,
good.
very
God
far.
bless you. Rafi, Benny came from New York. You flew in from, I don't know where you've been, but you're traveling the world. But thank you guys for being here. And thank you guys, most importantly, for watching home and being a part of this conversation. I think this, despite it being a food fight at times, I think the highlight for me is when you had to put each other in each other's shoes and really understand the other side. I'm not saying that that's the end all be all, but I think what we can understand is we all have very strong feelings about this. And, you know, we can go to every other country out there that there's wars galore. Ukraine, millions of people apparently have died there. Nobody's talking about Ukraine anymore. Sudan, you wouldn't even think that there's something going on there. It's a human atrocity. We know what's happened in Yemen. We know what's happened to your people in Syria. We know what's happened in Afghanistan. But for some reason, we're all very fixated on the Holy Land. It's the
Adam,
the home.
do you think more Ukrainians
Hold on,
or
Alex.
Lance have died,
Hold on,
or is Palestinians?
Alex.
Okay.
Thank you, Guy. For some reason, we're very fixated on this land for good reason. Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, we talked about that, the home of monotheism. Something tells me that we didn't solve world peace right now, but we're on our way. So thank you guys for having this very dispirited conversation. Not even that much of a debate, a conversation, but thank you guys very much. Maybe we'll do this again sometime. Hopefully not on the commemoration of another October 7th, but maybe there's something peaceful to celebrate. Thank you guys for watching, and thank you guys for being here. God bless. We're out of here. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.